Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's show was recorded on August the 30th, 2016. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, a raging bulldog.
Caffeine rage.
Timestamps will be after each of the topics list in the show notes, and today's topics will be the games we played, our bi-weekly game club, which this week is To the Moon. We'll have our weekly community corner, and our Steam weekly deals discussion. Hello, Rage.
Good evening. It's nice to hear from you.
Yeah.
It felt so weird last week.
I was so off last week. It's just so weird. Like, this is such a big part of my week. It's roughly 3.5 to 4 hours of recording and then another 2 to 3 hours of editing, depending on the show. And I already had I've got all the Franken episodes edited already. So I just had to record the little primer, throw that in, and boom, it was done. It was like 15 minutes.
Yeah, that was pretty much the show notes. The show notes actually takes me a fair amount of time just because of all the links in it.
Yeah, you've got to parse through all the links.
And getting it to format correctly because Blogspot just... sometimes it screws up the formatting a little bit and I have to go and fix it or retype something.
Yeah.
And so, just copying and pasting the intro area and just, saying, it was a Franken episode. We don't really have anything to link this week.
Yeah, that was super easy.
It was a weird week.
It definitely was. Yeah, because when we went to record Saturday, I texted you and I was like, this has been a weird week for me because I had other stuff going on because all of the students have returned to campus. So the clinic was going, we had a huge pile up on us from people who were returning to treatment after the summer and new people who had issues that were being referred in. And it's like, I just had a wacky week. And then we got sick over the weekend. Katie and myself and King, my son, we all got sick over the weekend. Although him, not so much. Just mostly Katie and me. My dog was sick too.
She's so sick, even the dog was sick.
Yeah, and I told you Saturday, I was like, I don't know. And Sunday I woke up and I was like, oh no. But I slept it off Sunday. I was okay yesterday and I'm okay today. I'm still feeling it a little bit, but I've got lots of fluids and drugs and caffeine, so I should be okay.
Yes.
I've always got you. I got you, babe.
Now, does that mean we have to start recording the show again?
Yes.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic.
Whoa. What do you think you're doing there, sir? That's my job. I wonder how would it go if you had to run the show because I was going to be gone and we didn't have any pre-recorded content.
Complete disaster.
I wonder if you would let Kyle or Chemist run the show and you'd just be there.
Oh, well, that's a thought. I mean, Chemist is already trying to take over.
Yeah. Which, by the way, Chemist and Kyle both, last week when I posted on Twitter that I had lost power and we couldn't record, were like, hey, we'll do a show. So they did. And we haven't exactly decided when we're going to use it. But
yeah, don't worry. I already have the passphrase for that one.
We're gonna use their show at some point. So thank you guys for being awesome. And basically, you're B team now. You're officially B team.
Yeah, Jared, let me know when you go to post that because I want to record a short thing for the password for you.
Okay.
Because I have a special one for them.
Okay. I'd love to know what it is, but obviously, if you said it on air, with me being too lazy to edit it out, everyone would know.
Yeah, but I could always just copy and paste from my Word list.
You could. Are you going to do that? Or are you going to paste it into the topics list? Because I just saw your little thing pop up.
No, I'm going to paste it into chat.
Oh. That's a good word. Both in going with their theme of what they did, and also that's just a good word in general. That's a good vocabulary word. Oh, did anything fun or fancy or story-worthy happen before we get into our games and such this week?
Not really. It's one of those weeks that just felt so off because we didn't record.
Yeah.
And and actually, about the only things really interesting was that I'm doing so well in RimWorld. I'm actually a full week ahead of my recording schedule now, so I'm back to my alternating recording schedule. And that means I'm probably going to be playing a lot more games from now on.
Wow. Like a boss. Look at you.
Yeah, RimWorld's been a lot of fun, the series. I feel so sorry for Aki. So sorry for Aki.
I love when you put your angry pants on whenever you're doing videos, but at the same time, I also like when you're genuinely happy about stuff. It's like there's a distinct, like there's three U's. There's the, I'm doing this video because I have to. That's usually the Sunday sampler because you get, like a lot of those games are just kind of flat. Then there's the occasional gym where you're like, oh, I really enjoy this game. Like I can hear it in your voice.
We Are the Police was probably the last one of those.
Yeah. And then there's your other games where you put your angry pants on.
Which is also one that I'm going to talk about. Actually, let's talk about that one right now.
Segue. Look at you.
Until you ruined it.
Let's do it. That's what I do. I ruin stuff.
Yeah, well, you got to hear the beginning of this whenever we had our little misfire last week.
Yeah, the power went out mid-conversation. Like, you took a breath, and then my power went out.
So you're saying don't breathe?
Yeah, don't breathe. Your breath is so strong it puts my power out. I could not laugh. Otherwise, I would have just went silent.
I wonder if that's going to be cut out.
I should have disconnected the call for comedic effect, but then we'd have to resync, and that's too much work, so...
Well, actually, technically, wouldn't because we would still be recording. Remember, we record locally.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So, the first game, now that we've had our little segue and then a digression.
Yep.
In celebration of violence, and no, that isn't a Fox News article talking about video games. That's an actual title of a video game.
Sick burn on Fox News there.
To be honest... there's not a lot that you could say that isn't a sick burn to Fox News. I mean, considering they had someone on there saying, Todd goes in, Todd goes out. You can't explain that.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, I wish that I could use that to segue to one of my games because I'm going to make a reference to Fox News in one of the games that I played this week. So just so that it's out there, you can be elated waiting for it with bated breath. Anyways, carry on.
In celebration of violence, this is actually a game that I wanted to like. But I ended up just hating its guts. Yes, this is the Angry Pants game.
Yay, Angry Pants.
This is a top-down roguelite adventure game. Where you're basically just trying to beat the ever-living hell out of things. In celebration of violence.
Right.
And art-wise, it doesn't look bad. I mean, just look at the screenshots. It's not terrible looking. It's a Unity game, so there's a lot of flexibility with its engine. But then you see it in motion. And one thing you may notice if you look at the screenshots of this game is the vision. It's pretty typical for a roguelike to have a vision system where if something wouldn't be in field of view of your character, you as the player cannot see what's there.
Right.
Well, they approximate this in the Unity game by having the very bottom of a deep well rendered as the game, and then all the walls in the game are really tall, solid black objects.
Really tall. Is that what that is? I don't remember you explaining that last time.
No, I didn't get to that last week.
Okay, I wondered what that was.
If you look at the trailers, it becomes abundantly clear that they don't have a vision system in the game. It's just they're blocking the camera view with tall black objects, tall black walls, and the camera is just lower than the top of the walls.
So that's what that is. I wondered what exactly that was. Was some kind of like effect or...
No, it's just they're trying to do a vision system and are being abundantly lazy with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if they could even do that in Unity. I'm not a game developer, and I don't even play one on TV. So As soon as I saw that, it just looked so ugly because the lighting just wasn't quite right to make it look, like you couldn't see where it was. And it became so apparent that those were just tall black walls. So, right. That's a strike against it just on the art department. And then we get to the gameplay. Oh, God, I fucking hate the gameplay in this game. You swing the sword, and it takes approximately a weekend for the animation to continue from start to finish.
He's not joking. Go watch the Steam, the trailer on Steam or on YouTube or wherever. It's awful.
Yeah, I would say the swing speed is probably about 3 or 4 seconds. Base, without any upgrades. And this has a constant progression system where in between runs, as you gain experience, which is essentially currency in this game, you kill something, it spews out a bunch of experience gems. And you pick them up, and you better pick them up because actually enemies can pick them up as well and level up. And if you kill a bunch of enemies, and one enemy picks up a bunch of gems, you could be literally fucked by this huge mega boss that is just basically a normal enemy that's been leveled up hugely because it picked up a bunch of gems. And the thing is that it's really easy for that to happen because you're constantly 3, 4 on 1, if not something like 8 or 9 on 1. It's just ridiculous. And with the slow swing speed, it's so easy to be trying to hit something. Something else will hit you. And this game has just an obscene amount of knockback in it, both to enemies and to you. Which to enemies I kind of understand because, you have to wait, for the next weekend to come around before you can swing your sword again.
Also, the weapons look mostly huge. So
this makes the Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII look small. It looks like a short sword compared to that.
Yeah.
So, because of the slow swing speed, they put in a huge knockback. But the thing is that there's so many enemies that something will hit you that you weren't swinging at, knock you out of range, and then you completely miss what you're swinging at. It's just ridiculous. And also, movement speed is also just hugely slow. And they do have a sprint in this, but it lasts 5 seconds at most before you waste all your stamina. And you also use your stamina to swing your weapon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So if you don't have enough stamina, can you not swing your weapon, or does it do reduced damage?
You could still swing your weapon. It just seems like it does less damage. And honestly, damage is really low to begin with. It feels like the game still needs a bunch of balancing, which I should say that this game is still in early access. So there is a chance that they could turn this around.
Right.
Granted, it's probably not likely because pretty much all the feedback that the developer gets outside of just general features like having a map, because this game doesn't. Oh, no, wait, it does. It's just very rudimentary. Sorry, I should clear that up. It's a very, very basic map, and it doesn't really show what's around.
So it's got a map, but it sucks.
Yeah, it's basically an outline of the level. You can't see treasure chests on it, for example. So if you find a treasure chest, you better remember where that is in the level. And the treasure chests a lot of times either use your health or your experience, your currency. Right. And you only have a set number of heals that they call surges to replenish. I think it's like a third of your health. Probably less, probably closer to a quarter. But also, I think it depends on your character class, which there's 4 of that I played. But the big thing that really annoyed me was also that the health could go into the negative, which I started to talk to you about before.
Yeah, I think that's where it cut out. You were telling me about it dips into the negatives and then you bleed to death.
Yeah, and I should say bleed to death extremely slowly. Something like 15, 20 seconds. And the idea is that the developer wanted attention where you could have a chance to heal yourself and save yourself from death. But the thing is that the health bar, and actually the stamina bar as well, should also go into the negative, and gives a blackout effect if you're... there's some things that could cause you to lose stamina. I think getting hit by certain weapons or something. I never really figured that out because I just couldn't play this game for much longer.
Right.
If you go below the set amount, which is actually, I think, about an eighth of the health bar, if I recall correctly, you'll notice on the health bar that there's a dark portion and a light portion. If you go into the dark portion, you start bleeding out. And if you don't have one of your surges, one of your heals, which the only way that I found to replenish them was actually to kill a boss. Granted, there may be other ways, or you may be able to buy them from shops, which honestly the shops were very rare, and a lot of times they required random resources. Yes, they're on top of currency. You also have to collect wood, chopping down trees, hitting rocks with I think you have to use a mining pick because I never really was able to get it to do it otherwise. To get metal, or you could just trade your experience for these resources. So they have on top of everything a resource system to buy materials at the shop, or there is supposed to be some sort of crafting system, but I honestly couldn't figure it out and just couldn't give a damn. Just because the combat was just so sluggish, just in movement speed and just weapon speed.
Right.
Oh, and on top of everything else, yes, I'm not even done. They wanted to pull some I want to be the guy bullshit. There was several times in my video where hiding behind trees were charging enemies. And as soon as they started charging, you had no way to dodge out of the way. None whatsoever. You were going to take that hit. Now, maybe, just maybe, if you spent enough of your experience in the upgrades in between runs, a late dodge would still, get you out of the way. But the thing is that as you're leveling up those stats, the price for everything increases.
Right. I remember you telling me about that.
Granted, what you've dumped experience into increases far more than what you didn't, but it still increases everything. And it has a rogue legacy style of use it or lose it for the experience. Once you go and start a new run, any leftover experience that you have from that progressive leveling system gets dumped into your currency pool again. And the only way to get that back without, if you die, you get a certain percentage back, but it's just exceptionally low.
Yeah.
The only way to get the full amount back is to kill a boss, which, good luck, because I faced two of them. One wasn't that bad, and the other one had just these wide areas of spikes. My dodge was unable to go far enough, so I think it was the thing that I had to have my dodge leveled up to a certain point to be able to dodge completely out of the way, which is just complete bullshit.
Right.
You have to kill those bosses in order to dump your currency back into the progressive leveling system. It's just, there's just so many things about this game that pisses me off. No, not that you could tell, right?
Nah, I'd never noticed.
And it's sad because I wanted to like this game. I like this genre. And the screenshots for it didn't look bad. I'm glad it was a review copy.
Yeah. All right.
Granted, it wasn't a great name for it, and good luck searching for that title because,
What happens if you Google "in celebration of violence"? I'm not sure if
probably a lot of articles about the Middle East.
In celebration of violence. Actually, the number one link is to the Steam page.
Well, remember, I played this 2 weeks ago, so maybe Google's caught on that this was a game.
Perhaps. And I don't have safe search turned on, so...
well, we know why.
And Google image search bears some other results.
I like the other results.
Some of them not so bad. Some of them kind of bad. So let's just navigate away from that.
So you're saying do not search that, right?
Probably shouldn't search that, no. I have experimented for all of us. I've done you a service. You don't have to go search for that.
So you've been our space monkey for the week.
I usually am. All right, what about your second game?
Okay, my second game is also one that's very hard to Google if you aren't good with it. N++. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Why am I reviewing a game from 2004 or from, I think the N+ came out around 2010? But no, this actually came to Steam this past week. Which, it's not a bad platformer. Now, granted, Jared's going to immediately miss this because it's a 2D platformer.
I just don't. I mean, because I wouldn't like it doesn't mean it's bad.
I think for the Game Club one week, we should stack the poll and have all 2D games.
I mean, I would play them. I might be surprised. I have found a few that I like. Just in general, I don't really like them. I'm open-minded. I'll try anything. Wink.
Oh, my.
Anyways, you were saying.
Okay, N++. It's a momentum-based platformer. A lot of people compare this game to Super Meat Boy, and I'm actually going to disagree with that for the most part. It does have the bite-sized levels where levels usually take somewhere in the order of, I would want to say like 20 to 30 seconds in general. Some shorter, some far longer. But yeah, that's the general feel of how long a level would take. But this game is a lot more momentum-based than Super Meat Boy, where Super Meat Boy was able to build speed very quickly, and it didn't really matter if you stopped to wait on something.
Right.
There's a long build-up time for your speed, and it actually... certain moves require you to actually have your momentum going. For example, wall jumping in Super Meat Boy, you can always wall jump pretty effectively. If you do that in this, and you don't have any momentum build-up, you are barely able to climb up a wall, and it's just going to kill your time. And this is a time-based platformer where you have, I think, 150 seconds at the start of each episode, which is episode is 5 levels. Not really interconnected, but they're linked together in their time pool. And as you grab gold in those levels, you increase the amount of time that you have remaining.
Right, okay.
And you're just going to absolutely massacre your time if you don't perfect your movement. And that's where this really comes in. It reminds me actually more of Dust Force, where, granted, Dust Force is a completely, not really a different genre, but it has a different objective. This is, getting from point A to point B to point C. You have to hit a switch, then get to the exit door. While Dust Force was essentially just clean the level of all the leaves. But it's the same basic idea where it's a lot of momentum, where there's a proper way to get through it at the fastest time possible. And to do that, you have to really work at this game because it's very tough, but it's also, if you want to get that high skill ceiling, you're going to have to work at that level. And that's what this game is. It's a lot of levels. There's over 2,000 levels, but granted that's split between 3 game modes, and only one is a single player. The other 2 are local co-op or local competitive only, which is a real shame because the previous game that was on Xbox, N+, I know, big surprise there, had online multiplayer. So while I do welcome the addition of local multiplayer, killing off online multiplayer for local multiplayer, I think, is a bit of a misguided gesture there.
Yeah, on PC, local multiplayer is always a nice addition, but there are people who have really large monitors or use a TV as their monitor with a PC,
or with Steam Link.
Yeah, or with a Steam Link, but comparatively, that's a small number, so it's not usually the most viable option.
Yeah, which is a shame because the multiplayer game modes are pretty fun looking. At least I didn't get to play them that much because I'm here by myself. There's a racing mode where it's basically you're playing a level trying to get from point A to point B to point C once again, but you're racing against your other people. And there was I'm trying to think of what the third mode is now. I'm blanking on it. And of course, you have the page open, so you could tell me, right?
I had it open. I closed it. I can open it again. Does it have all 3 modes listed in the page?
There's a co-op. It says co-op and competitive mode. So the racing mode is the competitive mode, and I think the co-op is just, team, almost like a battle block theater, where you have to work together.
Right.
Which I imagine would be a lot of fun, especially if you spend a lot of time on a particular level. Because looking at some of the replays, it's just amazing just how fluid the movement is. Now, for myself, I did find the gameplay a little bit floaty. It's like the gravity's turned down a little bit too much for me.
Okay.
Comparing it to Super Meat Boy, it just feels like the ninja in ++ just feels like he's too light, or he's like on the moon or something. Which, for this episode is rather appropriate, don't you think?
Yeah.
But no, that's not a segue.
No, it's not. I still have my games to talk about.
But it's just one of those things that I think that's just a personal problem that, I prefer my platformer with a little bit more heft to it. But overall, the controls felt fairly tight. It just felt a little too floaty for me. But it never felt like the game was punishing me because the controls were a little floaty, or because the ninja had a lot of momentum. Because most of the levels were built around that. Granted, there were a few dick levels that were more on the puzzle side of things, where if you did him in precisely the right order, it would actually trap you.
Well, that's a good way to waste time.
Well, thankfully, it does have the Super Meat Boy thing where you press a button and you instantly kill the ninja, and the level restarts with the time that you had at the start of the level. And it's pretty much instant. It's like 1 second.
Yeah.
So unlike in Celebration of Violence, it doesn't waste your time. So that is one thing that's kind of nice. And I think that's about it. Like I said, in the pregame, is that there's not a lot to talk about on a platformer outside of its mechanics. I will say that there's an absolute ton of color schemes that you could do, and a various level of eye rape.
Okay.
Well, just look at the screenshots, and you notice that they're all in different color schemes.
Yeah.
And those are the tame ones.
Right. Okay.
That pink one, there's one that's even worse than that. It's like pink and orange, if I recall correctly. And that's one of the ones that you could start with. And you can also set the options to randomize your color scheme at the start of the level. So, yeah, N++, it's not a bad game. It's not for me, personally. But if you enjoy your platformers, I think you'd like it.
Well, I probably wouldn't like it.
Or if you could get over 2D games. We are going to break you at some point.
One of the only platformers I've ever liked was Battle Block Theater. I mean, it was great, but there's not too many that I like. Well,
Battle Block Theater is kind of an odd duck to begin with, just because it has a lot more story than most platformers.
Right, it really does,
and a lot more humor.
That's what sells me on the game the most, is the story and the way it's presented.
Yeah, it's like Bastion. The narrator is what makes Battle Block Theater.
Yeah. Okay, well, then that brings me to my games. And my first game for this and last week is Empyrion Galactic Survival. Empyrion, if you've ever played Space Engineers, is more or less space engineers with extra survival mechanics slapped on top. You have to eat, and you have to take medicine, like if you get sick or wounded, you have to use a med kit, which those things mean that you have to grow food and collect plants from the environment or other materials, like kind of more advanced materials to build or craft med kits and things like that.
You also have to watch out for the space dinosaurs.
You do have to watch out for the space dinosaurs. There are space dinosaurs.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the screenshots. bought this, I played it for about 7 minutes and realized that it ran like ass on my system.
Yeah, it does fine on the 480, but I mean, that my RX 480 is like several times more powerful than your graphics card. So that's not exactly an apt comparison.
Basically watching the prices of the 480 come down as they come back in stock now.
Yeah, so
they're almost back down to what they should be.
It's pretty standard fare as far as it goes into these kind of space survival games. I mean, there's a bunch of them, but this one's a pretty good one. It's got a fairly large solar system. There's something like 9 planets and then several moons. There's some deep space stuff like asteroid stations and things like that.
You go to the moon?
You can go to the moon. The crafting elements in it they still have got a little bit to be desired. They're a little obtuse, I think, is the best way. Like, there's no way to... What they have not ripped off from Space Engineers is the really nice, handy conveyor system that can just pump resources into your various things, your refineries from your storage bins, and then resources to the little factory modules. You have to manually do all of that stuff, and that gets really old really fast, because once you go through your initial kind of starting supply of resources, it's like, oh, I've got to move this over here and that over here, and inventory management becomes a nightmare, as it does in many of these games. But outside of that one little issue, it's got a really good it's got a really good building system, not crafting system. The building system is great. There's tons of easy to access options for different block shapes and types, and painting blocks and applying textures and stuff like that. So I've put together a few kind of weird creations. I'm not the best at building things anyways. Like, I can make things that are functional, but I can't make things that look good. I just don't possess that ability.
I think we figured that out with Terraria.
Yeah, just imagine that, except with kind of a sci-fi coding on top of it. And that's basically what
Starbound.
You get. Yeah. But
or do you want a third dimension as well?
Terraria is 2D. I like Terraria.
I was joking because I said Starbound, and then I asked, do you want a third dimension?
Oh. Tee-hee. Sorry, I missed that without you having to explain it.
Which completely kills the joke, by the way.
It does, but that's okay. But, so yeah, anyways, I mean, I really like the time I've put into it so far. I've spent 20-something hours in the game. Here we go, 25 and a half hours. So, I mean, I do intend to keep playing it, but I kind of keep bouncing back and forth between, like, 3 games right now. So, with that being said about Empyrion... Oh, actually, I do have one problem with Empyrion. It does not have Steam integrated multiplayer support, and the built-in multiplayer is direct connect only, or you have to set up a server. And setting up a server doesn't always work. And it's not just my problem. I checked online. There are lots of people who, for reasons unknown, cannot set up servers. And I mean, there have been private servers, so it's not that no one can do it, but it's not consistently doable for some reason that has not been explained yet. You can buy or rent private servers from a third-party company that they advertise. So I don't know if that's the case, since the game is in early access.
I wonder why they have it broken.
Since the game is in alpha...
Excuse me while I have my tinfoil hat on.
Since the game is in alpha, I'm tending to give it the benefit of the doubt right now. But, I mean, some of their big updates include things like Steam support. It's the #1 requested feature, actually, is Steam multiplayer support. So we'll see if they actually follow through on that. But regardless, eventually, if we get enough people playing it, from our friend group / community that we have, I would be willing to front a server for a couple months. It's like $5 a month. That's not much. So,
I just ended up refunding it because once we discovered that multiplayer was a pain in the ass, there was really no reason for me to hold on to it.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't know when you're going to be able to actually get your video card and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's waiting for stock to get back in to the point that, the video card isn't superly expensive for what it is.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Well, that was my first game. My second game is Wildstar, the MMO, which is now free to play. I got the MMO bug a couple of weeks ago, just in anticipation of the new...
Yeah, you said that you were sick.
Yeah, just in anticipation of the new WoW content expansion, which came out.
You mean the fanfiction
today.
expansion?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's canon now, so that fanfiction became real.
It still doesn't make it a good idea.
Yeah, it'll still be fun. I'll enjoy
Not
it.
to say that all fanfiction's bad. It's just, it's bringing back Illidan again. Why?
Why not?
Or, okay, I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. Just repurposing old raids. I can understand why they're doing it, but at the same time, it just feels so lazy, especially as they're cutting down their major patches to be less and less content.
Yeah.
I mean, can you... well, you didn't play in Uldan, did you? Where, that massive dungeon in Wrath of the Lich King where it was, I think, like 15 bosses?
No, Wrath of the Lich King was the expansion where I dropped out for a while.
Yeah, that would have been like 3 patches now.
Yeah.
Or they if I recall correctly, they did stagger the launch where, it was, you could only do up to a certain point for 1 week, and then or was that the raid after that where it was basically the arena?
I don't know, but
I know they did it for one of them.
They did that for a little while, actually. For more than just that, they did that with Mist of Pandaria as well. That also an expansion that I skipped because I wasn't interested.
Just artificially lengthening the time that it takes for the top tier raid boss or the top tier raiding guilds to kill their raid bosses and get everything on farm.
Yeah.
I say Blizzard has kind of fallen off for me. Just in general.
Well, I'm going to get the expansion, but probably for Christmas whenever my mom buys it for me for a Christmas present. So that's probably when I'll play it. After all that stuff's already out. Or at least enough of it that it'll take me a while to catch up. But anyways, so yeah, I played Wildstar a bit these past couple of weeks. And I really enjoy Wildstar. Wildstar is very much like classic WoW in its mechanics and play style and everything. Just with a sci-fi sheen over the top of it.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, this was going to be one of the major WoW killers.
Yeah, which it was not.
That turned out really well for him.
But it's a really fun, fair, free-to-play MMO. I don't feel pressured to buy any microtransactions. I mean, they definitely shove it in your face from like the beginning of the game. When you hit level 3, or if you do the tutorial, or once you hit level 3 in the main game, they like shove all these microtransactions in your face. And like a mission objective is to use some of the free, I'm making air quotes, free premium currency they gave you to buy a useless item on the shop. It's like a random title. But aside from that
random title, that's a weird title.
It's called Thrifty Shopper is the title you get. And it's like, I'm not really thrifty. You make me do this as part of the quest. I can't progress past the tutorial without doing this. But aside from that point, I've already hit level 20-ish. I don't remember exactly because I didn't play yesterday or today because I was feeling kind of bleh. But I'm at around level 20-ish, and it's never really popped up again. So, I mean, fair on them. It might come when I hit the endgame content, which level 50 is the max level in Wildstar. So I'm a ways away from that, but it might pop up more then. It's a fun MMO, though. If you miss the feel of classic WoW, you could give it a shot. If you're not into sci-fi stuff, you might not like it so much because it's definitely sci-fi. But if you're looking for that classic feel, it's there. There's a few differences. The combat system encourages you to move around a bit more.
So more like Guild Wars?
Kind of. It's not quite as much as Guild Wars because I've played Guild Wars in the past. It's not quite that.
I've watched Guild Wars. I've never played it.
It's kind of a happy medium. Most of your attacks can be performed while you're moving. The enemy moves around quite a bit, and actually dodging is quite useful. You know how in WoW or many other MMOs like that, where once you start attacking someone, it doesn't really matter where you or they face. Your attacks are always just going to hit or miss based on essentially a dice roll.
And honestly, raid content where the tank is holding something still, it's more just hitting a certain button combination in timing and not really doing anything else.
This Wildstar actively...
I should say it used to be. It could have completely changed by now. Most likely not, but...
I don't play tanks, so even when I played WoW last time...
Well, I was a DPSer. I was a punching-in-the-face shaman, also known as enhancement.
But... So anyways, Wildstar...
I love that no comment.
I'm not... I can't get dragged into that discussion. Got to talk about my games. We got to get to Game Club, which is where I'm most looking forward to this week. But anyways, Wildstar encourages you to move around. You can actually dodge attacks. Enemies have tells for each of their attacks, and at low levels, you get this kind of cone that shows you where the attack is going to go. And if you can dodge out of the way of the cone using either a dodge roll or backing up or a move that moves, whatever, then you dodge the attack, and you can continue to deal damage. And I've only got... I play a ranged class. In the game, I play the engineer, which is kind of a combination of the hunter class from WoW mixed with a bit of priest. It's hard to explain.
How much Texan?
A lot of Texan. But...
I reckon a dispenser.
But... So I have like little combat drones and stuff that I can deploy and all kinds of jazz. But as a ranged character, I really benefit from being able to move and attack at the same time.
Yeah, at least it used to be in WoW. All the ranged classes had to basically be rooted in place, and you were essentially a turret.
You get an accuracy bonus when you stand in place. So for your primary,
you're kind of turning me on to this.
You get a bonus when you stand still. All of your primary attacks will be more effective. But when you're moving, it doesn't really hurt you that much. It's maybe a 5 to 10% boost. And most of the time, it's more beneficial to move around. About the only time that I will stand still is whenever I drop my turret and set it to barrage an area, which acts like an aggro and pulls all the enemies to my turret. And then I'll stand still and use AoE attacks and get the bonus. But... I mean, most of the time I'm on the move. It's fun. I really like it. I mean, I intend to keep playing it, and this is probably going to be my mainline MMO for at least a while. You
really made me tempted.
I mean, you can give it a shot. I don't know if you'll like it or not, but if you do, you'll have somebody to play with.
I do like my sci-fi, and what I really missed from WoW wasn't the gameplay for WoW. It was more the social aspect.
Yeah, there's a pretty decent community that is there, that are on all the time. My experience so far has been the people that I've interacted with have been polite and helpful, because I've had to ask some questions about like gameplay mechanics I don't understand and things like that, and just kind of get some help in building my house. At level 12, you get a space house. It's like on a floating rock, and you get all kinds of things that you can place there that give you bonuses for your character. And just some of them don't really make sense. And so I've had to ask around. But, I mean, people are really helpful. So it's a fun game. The only real problem I have with it is that the game tries to be funny. It tries really, really hard to be funny. It tries
too hard to be funny, I'm guessing.
But it tries too hard to be funny, and it's not funny. That's the only problem. It's essentially the problem
I have with some games, where they try too hard, and it comes off as more cringe than funny.
Yeah, this game definitely tries too hard. It's also a bit of a performance hog, so I don't know how well it would run on your system.
Okay, maybe I should hold off until the 480 actually gets in stock.
Yeah, I mean, with the 480...
I mean, it's starting to get in stock.
With the 480, I can run the game on maximum settings on everything, and for the most part, it averages 60 to 80 FPS. There's a few areas that it dips into the 40s. But, I mean, I could just dial back the settings a little bit, and that wouldn't be a problem. But my laptop, which is kind of my budget, or my kind of low gaming, low-powered gaming thing, can't even hold 30 FPS on the minimum settings.
Yeah, my notebook is really more remote control for my main system, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's really GPU intensive. So I don't know how well your GPU would hold up.
Yeah, my notebook is the Battle Bridge, where it's the remote control and Steam Link.
Yeah. So yeah, that's Wildstar. Great, fun, free-to-play MMO.
I'll put that on my list.
I put it on the Game Club list. just because I thought it would be fun if we could get a community.
I didn't really parse through everything that you've added.
I'm pretty sure I added it. I might not have, but if I didn't, I intended to, and I will. The last game on my list is Sword of the Stars, which we've talked about, me and you, before. I gave you this game as a gift some time ago.
Yeah, and I still have it. I played a little bit of it, but it was a little obtuse. It's just really because obtuse. Of how old it is.
Yeah, it's better than Sword of the Stars 2. Sword of the Stars 2, they really gummed up the works by putting too many features. Turn times were ridiculously long in Sword of the Stars 2. Even like your first 10 turns would take you as long as 100 turns in the original Sword of the Stars.
Wow.
It's crazy. It's still fun, but it's even more obtuse. So anyway, Sword of the Stars is a fairly old RTS. The Steam version is the complete collection, which includes both gameplay expansions. So it's got a total of 6 races and a huge tech addition to the game. But the base game is still really fun if you happen to find it somewhere. I think the only version on Steam is the complete collection. But anyways, I just got another bug to play some strategy.
Boy, you've been pretty sick this week.
Yeah, to play some 4X strategy games. And I was just going through my rather large collection and thought, I haven't played Sword of the Stars in a couple of years. I should install that and start playing. And I played for like 17 hours over the last 2 weeks. I've got 2 active games going currently. One where I'm playing my old standby, the humans fighting the Hiver, because the Hiver is an alien race of insect creatures. And that's kind of like the main, like, quote-unquote story of the game. Like,
so
if you
you're just waiting for Ender to show up now?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for Ender to show up. But yeah, if you're playing the scenario mode, that's kind of like what all the scenarios revolve around. When the humans come to space because the Hiver attacked and humans got some space technology from them and stuff. And I just like to play it. They're 2 incredibly, incredibly different factions. And then another one I'm playing as one of the other races, the Tarkas, which are like generic sci-fi stuff. Like they have like standard warp drive, standard this, like everything. Like whenever you think of like, I guess like generic Star Trek, really. So they're like your generic Star Trek race with warp drive and proton torpedoes and phasers and all that.
And every so often Q shows up and fucks everything up.
Yeah. There are random events that can show up and really screw everything up. Everything from asteroids to AI invasions. And
I hear there's a cream for asteroids to clear that up.
I usually actually turn the random events off because sometimes you get stuff that really doesn't matter. It's like, a meteor shower in your system, and you get some people killed, but it's not that big of a deal. Like some civilians or whatever die. And then sometimes it's like an ancient alien planet devouring device has showed up on your home world, and it's like turn 30, and you're like, oh my gosh, I just lost my home world. And that's the most important planet you have for the first 100 or so turns until your tech can crank out upgrades to make other planets really good. Because your homeworld gets a huge boost to a lot of stuff.
Until that alien showed up.
Yeah. But, as a 4X game, it mostly focuses on the exploration and extermination portion of the 4Xs. The diplomacy system is pretty basic. So there's not really too much you can do with that. And the expansion system, going and colonizing other worlds, is serviceable, but it lacks a lot of customization. Like you can't name planets. You can't really just go in and customize anything. All you can really do is set civilian versus military population and how much of a trade or production world do you want something to be. So it's really basic. It does have, though, a unit, which I am starting to use all the time now, that is from one of the expansions, that is really helpful, called the Propaganda Cruiser, which I affectionately name the Fox News Van. And what you can do with this is you can park it on one of your planets, and it gives it a +5 happiness boost every turn.
Vote Trump. Vote Trump. Vote Trump.
Or you can stick it next to an enemy empire's planet, or an allied, if you're allies with someone, you can put it in orbit at one of their planets. And you give them a negative, depending on how many system jumps you are away from it, how many light years you are away from it, it gets a negative happiness bonus. And and gradually over time, if they don't counter it in some way, their people will want to join your empire. And so you can take
but you don't let them in
it.
because you built a wall?
Yeah, I built a wall.
In space?
In space, yeah. Probably my favorite thing about this game is how deep they went into it. You can spend at least an hour when you're customizing a game going through the different races' backgrounds and explanations of their histories and technology and just read it like a mini novel. It's great. They really took the time to create a fairly unique and interesting sci-fi universe. All 6 races play incredibly differently. There are some similarities. I think I've said this before. It has a random tech tree, and each race has some specific techs that only they can get. But all the rest of the techs are shared and just randomized. You're always guaranteed to get like the different ship classes and the different propulsion types and things like that. But there's certain specific like weapons techs that you won't get every time. And sometimes you might get shield tech. Sometimes you might get specific armor upgrade tech. Sometimes you might get stealth technology. Sometimes you might get all 3 and get like no colonization bonuses. So you're stuck to a smaller number of planets because you can't colonize worlds that are more difficult. So that's really what spices the game up a lot. The random tech tree, so every game is a little bit different. And then how varied up each species is in their technology. And I'm not going to get too much into them, but just like as a quick description, the Hiver and the humans both have the most interesting faster than light drives. The humans use what's called a node drive, which allows them to travel super fast, like the fastest faster than light travel from system to system, but they have to follow systems that have gravity connections to one another. And it like creates a whole bunch of sci-fi bullshit reasoning for how it works. But basically, certain planets...
graviton particle beam off the main deflector dish?
Yeah, something like that. But basically, certain planets are linked to other planets through some sort of space-time gravity anomaly or whatever. And you can write You can write it kind of like a river. And, you know, the other faster-than-light techs might take like 7 turns to go from system to system. But this system you can go between in 1 turn because they're linked and the humans are like following that road. Whereas the Hiver, on the other hand, don't have like a warp drive or anything like that. They have to go everywhere using standard slower than light drives, which means it takes forever for them to go from system to system. But they have a jump gate network that they can deploy, which means that they can go from any planet that they have to any other planet that they have a jump gate at in 1 turn. So you can go across the entire... Yeah, basically. You can go across the entire galaxy in 1 turn if you put a Stargate at each end.
A matter of fact, that pretty much is Stargate because they did have faster than light travel, but it was still somewhat slow.
Yeah.
It still took a long time to get between systems, but the fastest way to get around was the Stargates themselves.
Yeah. So
I miss that show.
Yeah, I do too. I love Stargate, but
I far preferred Stargate SG-1.
Me too.
At least up until season 9. It started to once Richard Dean Anderson left the show, I think it started to go downhill.
Yeah, I missed him. I liked the show all the way through though, but you're right, it does start to go downhill.
Yeah, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't nearly as good. Atlantis wasn't bad, and I just couldn't get into Stargate universe. It just felt, and this is going to sound really stupid. It felt too much like Battlestar Galactica. And it's not what I wanted. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. It's been years since I've seen the series, though. The last time I watched it was I borrowed all the DVD sets from my mom, because she loves sci-fi, too. And I watched them in my dorm my freshman year of college. So that's been like 6 or 7 years ago, something like that. So, it's been a while, but I do really enjoy that show. Anyways, though, that's just one example of all the differences between the different races, and each of them have really unique technologies and things like that. So yeah, it's a really, really good game. And if you're into that sort of thing, it's pretty cheap normally, and it goes on sale all the time. So if you've never checked it out, you can. And before I move on, this just popped into my head. It supports a full range of modern widescreen resolutions. So it plays at 16 by 9 incredibly well. 1920 by 1080p. Perfectly. There's no stretch or anything.
You mean it supports more resolutions than Overwatch?
It does. It supports tons of resolutions. They really, the developers behind this really did a good job building a game. Kerberos Productions. It's 91% positive on Steam, which, reviews, but generally it trends upward. So yeah, that's Sword of the Stars. If you need to learn how to play, this goes both to you, Rage, and other people out there in the community.
I think you should do a tutorial series.
I could. Ooh, that's a good idea. I should do a tutorial series. It's been months since I've done one since Kerblecast is dead.
Yeah, that's going to keep you busy, and real shame about Kerblecast.
Yep.
And turns out our Badger Trap was empty, by the way, when we started up the recording today.
Yeah, I suppose that you guys would have noticed that, but I completely forgot to mention that earlier. Oh, well.
No, she's here. It's just she's really quiet.
Amy, she listens to the show. She told me she did. Amy, the invitation is still open, so don't worry about it. Just let's sync up better next time.
Or sync up at all.
Yeah. Okay, well, those are the games we played this week.
Yeah, and that reminds me, I need to rebait the trap.
We hit our time limit, our estimated time limit, pretty much on the head. I mean, editing will change us around a little bit, but the recording is at just over an hour, so go us.
I'm showing 56 minutes.
Yep. Well, I'm showing an hour.
Well, remember, I start as soon as you say, hello and welcome.
That's fair. All right, so yeah, pretty close to an hour, which means that it is time for us to move on to this bi-weekly week game club, which was No Man's Sky.
We're not going to do the...
Or not No Man's Sky. I said No Man's Sky, To the Moon.
Yeah, I was going to say we're not going to do the quick news story.
The quick news story?
Never mind. You prefaced the game club before the Entitled Gamers.
Yeah. I put that first. So yeah, To the Moon. This week, I'm going to be better about saying this is going to be entirely spoilerific. Hugely spoilerific. So,
huge tracks of spoilers.
So if you don't want to hear any spoilers about To the Moon, because you haven't played it and you really want to and experience it fresh, just go down and look at the topic list and skip ahead to whatever the next topic is.
Which, unless we go way over time, should be talking about Entitled Gamers.
Yep. So
I promise it's not going to be completely about No Man's Sky.
Last time we had Kimmis go first, but actually we're going to put Kimmis and Kyle both sent in something. We're going to put them last this week. We're going to go first.
We're still trying to get a feel for how this does a little bit better. If it's better that we chatter away than have the community opinions and then comment on that, or have the community opinions first and then chatter away afterwards. Yeah, it's just trying to feel things out still.
Yep, we're still learning. This is our second week, this is our second week doing a game club. So we've still got a ways to go learning the best way to do it. So yeah, we're gonna try us going first this week. I'm looking for my little sheet. Here we go. I've got a lot of notes on this game.
Yeah, as I played the game, I actually did real-time thoughts throughout the entire story. And then afterwards, I had actually some questions and some general thoughts about the game. Okay.
Well, let's go with our 4 questions.
Our general 4 questions, and I have some things to talk about.
Okay. I've envisioned these as more of a guide to just kind of help us out.
It's more of a guideline than a set of rules.
Yeah. I think, though, the most important question is question number 1, which is, did you like it, yes or no?
I did for the story. The technical aspect of the game itself, I did not.
Yes. I did not experience those problems, and that is what Kimmis's letter is going to go into in great detail later. But did I like the game? Yes. Loved it. Loved it so much. And I will explain why in just, whenever I get there. But I love this game. Do you want to go ahead and mention the technical issues? That way we can get that out of the way on our part first, just to kind of help frame this discussion.
Well, I think most of it just stems from it's an RPG Maker game. And it really shows just the sheer limitations of that engine.
Not only that, but an old RPG Maker game. Yeah. This game came out in 2011. So there have been quite a few improvements made to the RPG Maker engine over the years, but this does not benefit from any of those.
Yeah, probably the most damning of its limitations is that you either have a very, very small, what was it, 640 by 480 window, or it blows up to full screen, which makes everything very blurry.
Yeah, it's 640 by 480 or full screen. I did not have any issues on either front, on either machine that I played. On my desktop at home, it just went straight away to 1920 by 1080, and
yeah, but it wasn't nearly as sharp. It wasn't nearly as sharp as it should have been.
No, not quite. It was a little bit fuzzy, but this is, for me...
It was very fuzzy on my screen.
Mine wasn't that fuzzy. I don't know if it's just like I have a high-quality monitor or...
Or you're just blind.
That I am pretty blind. I have really bad vision. I also just don't care. I don't really care about graphics at all, so it doesn't bother me.
That's probably it, is that you just wasn't looking for it.
Yeah, that's probably it. And then on my laptop, it started out in the 640 by 480 window, but I... was able to, what is it, Alt-Enter?
Yeah, it was Alt-Enter.
Alt-Enter and make it windowed mode and just blow the window up. I adjusted my resolution of my laptop's monitor, or my laptop screen, a little bit. I bumped it down to 1024 by 768? Is that right? I don't know, whatever. I bumped it down to that resolution, and then it was fine. I kind of found a happy medium on my laptop.
Yeah, my notebook itself is just over 720p, so it was a decent window size there, but the thing is that it just wasn't fun to play with a trackpad.
Right.
Because another problem with it being a very, very old RPG Maker game is that it technically has controller support, but it doesn't because of just how it's set up. It's just very, very rudimentary, and the thing is that the way they set up the game is that there's segments of the game where it completely changes the control scheme.
Yeah.
Which is just very off-putting if you're trying to play with a trackpad, and then all of a sudden, okay, now you need the spacebar and the arrow keys.
Yeah.
It would have paid so much. Paid off so much more if they even made this just a visual novel.
I just use the arrow keys and the spacebar the whole time, except for that one section when you have to fight the weird zombie whatevers,
yeah,
and where you have to use WASD.
Which was just weird.
Yeah, that was weird. But other than that, I mean, it didn't really bother me to use the arrow keys and the spacebar. I totally understand that being like incredibly off-putting because it's weird in PC gaming nowadays. But especially on my laptop, that doesn't bother me at all. And then on my desktop, I just use my mouse to navigate around.
Yeah, for the most part, I was actually using the mouse to navigate in the game. Then all of a sudden say, okay, now you need to use the arrow keys and spacebar. It's like, oh, son of a bitch, where's the arrow keys on this keyboard?
That only happens twice, right? The horse segment and...
Yeah, the horse segment, which was just... the way the horse segment was set up... Well, let's go into the gameplay itself, is that Kyle said it probably the best way, is that it's a scavenger hunt.
Yeah.
Each time frame, for lack of a better term, you have to collect memory links to get to further back into... what was it? It was Johnny's, but it wasn't his real name. That was sort of his nickname. It was
Johnny's his real name.
It was John... No, I wasn't trying to spoil anything there. I remember they commented, or maybe it's just the fact that, an old man called Johnny.
Yeah, but he says he likes that. Like, his name is John, but most people call him Johnny. And I can't
remember I remember them commenting that it was weird to call him Johnny.
Right. Actually, do you think we should talk about the story first before we... Because
I just want, since we're going to stick on the story for most of this, getting all the technical aspects out of the way, I think is a better idea.
Okay, that's fair. Carry on.
But you have to go through each segment and get, usually it's 5 memory links. Sometimes it's 4 and they give you the 5th, but then you have to find an object to take you further back, which appears in the further back segment. Like at one point... there's a stuffed platypus that shows up a lot for a story reason that we'll get into in a little bit.
Right.
Let's say you get all the memory links and you have to find what is the interactive object to send you back. And you put all the memory links in. And then you have this odd puzzle game where it's almost like Blackout, where you have to flip over all the tiles to get the picture, which is just weird, and I'm not sure why it's really there. I'm assuming it's like supposed to be some sort of like calibration to send you further back into the guy's memory, but it's just some objects it just didn't work that well, because if something's turned over the wrong way, it's white, or at least sometimes it's white.
Yeah.
And on the sheet of notebook paper, it took me a while I shouldn't say a while, but it took me a lot longer to figure that one out, because I had a tile that was flipped over in the middle of it.
Yeah. And you didn't realize because of the color. Yeah. I mean, the puzzle sections are really, really easy.
Yeah, they're very rudimentary.
Most of them can be completed in like 15 or 20 seconds without even really trying too hard. There's a couple that are a little bit more difficult just because there's a lot more pieces to the puzzle, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it expands out. It's at first it's a 3x3 grid, and I think at the end it's a 5x5.
Yeah, but even at that,
5x5 or 6x6, one of the two.
I think it's 6x6, but I mean, even at that, I think the one that took me the longest was only like 45 seconds, and I think that was because I was distracted when I was doing it. Yeah, where? But so yeah. Anyways, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
But just the fact that there was a couple objects that made it very easy to not tell if you're solving them correctly or not. Right. Was a little bit off-putting.
Right.
Trying to think of anything else gameplay-wise. They changed the complete control scheme on you twice.
Yeah.
Almost a shooter segment. Matter of fact, it's a shooter segment at one point. And then a horse segment, which the horse segment wasn't bad. It's just trying to figure out exactly what to do there, because that's one of the times that they kind of change the rules on you.
Yeah, normally you have to walk up and click on the object with whichever control scheme you're using. You interact with it. But in the horse segment, you have to follow around the different story characters.
Yeah.
To get the little points. The very first time I did that, I was really confused. I remember like sitting on that section for a long time, like I've clicked on every tree and everything, and like I found one of them by accident. I was like, oh. And then that's how I figured it out. But, having that experience, when I went back and played it, I was like, oh, let me just follow these guys around and get the memory reference points.
Yeah, trying to think of anything else major gameplay-wise. They did have a mock battle at one point, which was kind of funny. There was a bit of humor in the game that I wasn't expecting. I was expecting it to be really dour.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of humor. The two sort of main characters that you play as, the two doctors, Dr. Rosalind and Dr. Neil, or
Watts,
Dr. Watts. Dr. Watts.
Yeah.
Neil's his first name. Watts has got an incredibly kind of weird, awkward sense of humor, and he makes a lot of jokes and references.
And a lot of references, yeah.
I wrote down
at one point they were talking about moving the piano upstairs in one of the very early memories, and it was talking about how it would take an entire episode of Doctor Who to get into the TARDIS itself.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. They also made references.
But to be fair, that would be better than a couple of the recent Doctor Who episodes, particularly that one on the moon.
Yeah, I don't watch much Doctor Who, but I watch a little, so yeah. They also make references to Dragon Ball Z with the Kamehameha.
And how dare you interrupt it?
Yeah. They also made a How I Met Your Mother reference, actually. When he calls himself Dr. Lorenzo von Matterhorn, that is a reference to How I Met Your Mother, when that's one of Barney's plays from the playbook, is Lorenzo von Matterhorn, where you pretend to be someone who's like really famous to get laid. Someone like really famous and obscure, so that whenever they Google your name, like you are absolutely the person who's going to pop up and pretend to be famous, like have like your own website or whatever, talking about all your cool things you've done. You can Google it right now and it'll pull up the site that they created for that episode of How I Met Your Mother. So I laughed because I just went back and rewatched most of How I Met Your Mother, and I was like, hey, that's a reference to How I Met Your Mother. But yeah, they also do a Hadouken, and he references Hulk. Hulk smashes one of the little memory bubbles, and some other stuff. I mean, there's more stuff in there. So Good bit of humor. A lot of swearing. I don't actually remember there being that much swearing when I played through the first time, but there's quite a bit of swearing. Since it's all text-based, except for one song that has lyrics to it, they just do like the little kind of random characters to show that they're swearing, but they do actually put in quite a few swear words.
Yeah, which the music, by the way, is just amazing in this game.
Yes.
Probably my favorite part.
Yes.
Laura Shigehama just did an amazing job in this.
Yeah. Some of the music, I can just listen to it and start crying. Speaking of which, did you cry when you played this game?
No, but I did feel like I got punched in the gut a couple times.
I cried a lot. I played through it twice in the past 2 weeks to get ready. Once to just play it, and then once more to go back and make notes. And both times I cried for like a half an hour of the total gameplay time. And I'm not ashamed of that fact. It is a wonderful story, which, if you don't have any other gameplay mechanics to get into, we can start talking about story.
Yeah, I think that's it. I'm looking at my notes to see the lack of controller support, I think, was the most damning thing for me, because I was actually setting up to, just lay in bed with my notebook and play with my DualShock 4 controller, get everything hooked up, and it's like, damn it, it just doesn't have proper controller support.
How long did it take you to play through it?
I actually didn't time it. It took me an afternoon, though, so it wasn't that long.
Was this the first time you played it?
Yeah, this was the first time I played it, and I did in one of my notes, the beginning, at least the first time through, is exceptionally boring. Up until, I would say that like the first half an hour to 45 minutes, it just didn't grab me at all.
Yeah, up until I actually plug into his memory, it's pretty dry, and then you start to get really involved in like, oh, okay, this is...
Yeah, I would say actually the first few jumps is what it took me to actually get into it. Up until that point, it was very, very dry, and just took a while to really get anywhere.
Right. I was pretty much hooked from the second you plug into his memory and start talking to the construct, which... Okay, let's very quickly just run through the story. So the story is divided into 3 acts.
Yeah.
The first act, you meet your two kind of protagonist characters that you can play. You can choose to play either...
at least in sub-segments. And later in the story, it's set who you play. At least I think it is, because it was never... I chose to use Rosalind while in the manor.
Yeah, so did I.
And then later, you controlled Watts.
I think that choice really only matters for that first section of the game.
Yeah, I just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, because in the first section of the game, so you get to the house... you learn that you guys, the 2 doctors, Rosalind and Watts, work for Sigmund Corporation, which is a company that goes and has dream interfacing technology. And in someone's dying days, you interact with their mind, go through and plant essentially a memory seed to try and achieve a desire that they couldn't achieve in their real life so that they die happy. So you get to the house. You get set up, figure out who the person is you're going to be working on, whose name is John, referred to oftenly as Johnny. You get all that set up, you go into his memories, and you start working your way back through his memories to try and figure out what he means when he says he wants to go to the moon. Because he doesn't know why.
At the very beginning, he has no clue why.
He just knows his deepest desire is to go to the moon. So you start working your way back through his memories, experiencing his life with his wife, whose name is River. And you work back through time, figuring out how they got to where they ended up in their relationship. She winds up sick and dying, so he's been alone for the last couple of years.
One of my first questions was, what the hell killed River? They just say terminal illness that's treatable.
Well, River has Asperger's syndrome. They don't explicitly say that in the game.
Yeah, they called it... Hang on, I actually have that in my notes. But I actually started to Google this, and then I started reading it. It's like, wait a minute. My co-host is a psychiatrist.
Yeah, all of this stuff is painfully obvious to me, but I realize I'm in a special, fairly unique position. So,
yeah,
she has Asperger's syndrome, which her level of Asperger's syndrome, she would be diagnosed as someone who has a moderate diagnosis of Asperger's, which means that she suffers from a lot of the rougher symptoms, like I put this down in my notes. Awkward, socially awkward.
Pervasive developmental disorder is what they called it in game.
Yeah.
I had to look through my notes a little bit to find it, because what I did was I did my real-time thoughts, and then I would make some notes in that.
Pervasive developmental disorder is actually a fairly general term for the autism spectrum, with Asperger's being a specific type of autism. But, I mean, she has autism. The person that they reference at one point in one of the memories, Tony Atwood, is actually an Asperger's syndrome specialist who has written, I think, 6 books on the subject, one of which I read when I was going through school. So I also caught that one, like, immediately.
Yeah, see, I didn't Google his name, but I did make note of it. I just didn't think to Google it until now.
Yeah. So, yeah, she has Asperger's syndrome. I don't know what killed her. I kind of thought it was cancer, just given how long it takes her to die. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But then if she was taking any treatment, she would have lost all her hair.
You mean when she cuts her hair?
Yeah. No, if she was taking chemotherapy, usually hair loss is pretty common in that. So
yeah, hair loss is a common side effect.
And they said surgery, so
yeah. I mean, I assumed that cancer was what killed her.
Yeah, but the thing is that it wouldn't be just surgery; it'd be usually some sort of chemo or radiation therapy on top of it. So
yeah, well, I mean, John refers to her medical bills as an ongoing expense, which lends to chemotherapy, which is incredibly expensive.
Yeah, but then, it's I would have expected her to be bald in that memory and not have hair. It's just one of those things. That's why I was questioning what killed her.
Yeah, Asperger's syndrome will not kill you at the level that she's functioning at.
Granted, it may want people to kill you.
Yeah. So anyway, the first act is you work all the way back through to the earliest memory that you can, which is around middle school. Whenever you try to go back to John's childhood.
I think they actually said high school.
Was it high school?
It was either high school or I think they had said high school, but I didn't make note of it.
Well, I was going to say the date that they go on is in high school, but that was only like 1 or 2 weeks before the memory at the school. So I guess it's high school, yeah. Whenever you're...
it was literally the weekend after he asks her, because he says Saturday.
Yeah. So anyways, whenever you try to go back to his earliest memory, which is sometime during his childhood, it doesn't specify when, but pretty young. I'm guessing elementary school age.
It's blocked off.
It's blocked off.
And immediately that was a red flag to me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. So then Act 2, they decide that they've probably gone far enough. They're going to go implant the seed to try and get him to go to the moon. They realize that it doesn't work, so they try a whole bunch of stuff to make it work.
Which was actually, some of it was pretty funny.
Yeah, like creating a really bad movie and...
the NASA conference or assembly was cringy but funny.
Yeah. So they do a whole bunch of things to try and get it to work, but they can't make it succeed. So they take a break and try and figure out what's wrong. It turns out that John has he has hidden medical records from when he was a child, where that they gave him high doses of beta blockers, which have a side effect of causing memory loss. And so they figured that's probably why he doesn't have memories, and that something bad must have happened to cause him to lose his memories from that time, and why they gave him the drugs to ensure that happens. So they figure out how to get past the beta blockers. They go access those childhood memories, where they discover that Johnny had a twin brother whose name was Joey, and Joey gets referenced once in the story before that in Act 1, where his mother calls him Joey, and he's like, oh, it's just my grandfather's name.
Well, there was also a hint that something was going on with the Animorphs question.
Right, because Johnny doesn't really care about Animorphs, but he has this huge collection, and it turns out that his brother, Joey, was the one who loved Animorphs.
Well, the question he has, the answer is wrong.
I did not know that, because they give you the answer no matter what you say.
I actually Googled that after the fact, and it turns out that the answer is he he has a wrong snake. So it's a rattlesnake instead of a cobra.
Oh, okay.
If I remember my Googling correctly, with the main morph being a completely different animal.
Right.
Which is a huge hint if you were to Animorphs that, he didn't read the books. So something is going on here.
Right.
Granted, I didn't read Animorphs, so I didn't get that hint.
And also, when you get to the earliest childhood memory you can before it's blocked, he has bunk beds in his room.
Yeah, see, and I missed the bunk bed.
Yeah. So, anyways, you discover that Johnny had a twin brother, Joey, who died when his own mother ran him over with their car. It was an accident. She didn't murder him on purpose, but
yeah, she was backing out of the driveway, and he runs behind the car, and
she hits him and kills him. Mm-hmm. And so that's why he took the beta blockers.
Yeah, and she goes absolutely crazy and starts forcing really Johnny to become Joey.
Right.
Because the pickled olives was a huge sign that of what happened afterwards. Because he said that he didn't like pickled olives. It was Joey that loved them.
Right.
And he was essentially forced to eat them until he loved them.
Right.
And he also picked up Joey's ambition of becoming an author.
Right. So you go back, I believe that this was after that. You go back one step farther to try and figure out how River is connected. And they're at a
carnival.
A carnival. And Johnny
Well, we should, before we get to that, we need to talk about River.
Okay.
Because we didn't really talk about River because the only thing we talked about was that she gave up her life. She refused treatment for them to build their dream house at the lighthouse that they got married.
Well, actually, I was going to get to that after this because I have a lot of notes on this whole deal from a therapeutic standpoint.
Well, it ties into the meeting. That's the reason why I was going to go into it.
Okay.
Was because while she was, during her entire marriage, she was making origami rabbits, and Johnny could never figure out why.
Right. And
as she got sicker and sicker, she started making more and more rabbits, and eventually adding color to them, giving him a yellow rabbit or a blue and yellow rabbit, and he never figured out why.
Right. And the reason for that is when they meet at this carnival when they're kids. River finds Johnny in her spot, stargazing. And she comes up and they have a little conversation about the stars. And River refers to the stars as lighthouses in the sky. And they make a bunny using the moon and some random stars. And they make a little constellation that looks like a bunny. And Johnny, his mom, comes and finds him and says he has to leave. And River says that they'll meet up, or can they meet again next year? And Johnny says yes. And she says, well, what if you don't? What if you're not here? And he said, well, we'll just meet up on the moon. And so that is why Johnny desires to go to the moon, but he doesn't know why.
Yeah, because he lost his memory of that entire meeting because of all the beta blockers.
That and the trauma. So here do you want to go through Act 3 and then come back to this?
Let's go ahead and go into the trauma of it, and this is going to be your thing.
Okay. So,
because I'm way too dumb to get this.
So Johnny has suppressed memories from trauma. See it all the time with stuff that happens to even adults, but kids are incredibly susceptible to this. Kids don't have the emotional language or maturity to process through tragic events, and so most of the time children will suppress or just completely somehow remove themselves from those memories. On top of that, they gave Johnny a huge dose of beta blockers, which does oftentimes, in at least the high doses they talk about, also induce memory loss. So Johnny loses everything after the trauma incident when his mom runs over the car. And because the carnival happened before that, Johnny has no memory of their first meeting. That's what winds up having River start making all the bunnies. Johnny tells her after
she realizes that he has no memory of their first meeting. Right.
So she starts making, because River has, because River has Asperger's syndrome, one of the primary things of Asperger's syndrome is social awkwardness and a lack of communication skills. So even though they've known each other for years and are married, she doesn't know how to tell him that he forgot their first meeting. So instead, what she does is she starts making these bunnies. She fixates on the bunny because that's the thing that they created together. And so that's why she starts making origami bunnies. She's reaching out to him saying, remember the bunny. Remember when we got together and we created the bunny. Yeah, and
there was also the red herring at their wedding.
The
roadkill rabbit.
Oh, yeah. Because they suspect that she latched onto that for some reason and is experiencing a mental breakdown.
Yeah, it was used as a metaphor for, or an omen for her upcoming marriage.
Right. But instead what she's doing is she's reaching out to Johnny in the only way that she knows how because of her disorder. And he, because of this extreme repressed memories and his lack of a desire to learn about her condition, because in one of the scenes, as we're going back and learning about their relationship, she finally gets diagnosed. She's got a late-term diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome. And the guy offers...
It was middle age or late middle age.
Yeah, but that's considered late term. I mean, ideally, you want to catch Asperger's syndrome.
Well, I was saying when they in her life they caught it.
Oh, yeah. She's middle-aged. So anyway, see, that's when the guy's name comes up, Tony Atwood. The doctor offers the book by Tony Atwood, and Johnny says he doesn't want to read it. And he doesn't want to learn about her condition. He doesn't want to understand because he wants to think of her as the person that he's always known as just being unique. He doesn't want to think of her as someone with a mental disorder.
Yeah, which came off as really off-putting to me, It's just really cold.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the scene in the high school whenever one of the doctors, Neil, I think, refers to John as a sick bastard. Or maybe it's one of the kids that he's talking to, his friend. But he's not.
When you thought that it was their first meeting, because this was before... I think it was Act 3 when it was Act 3 when they eventually got back. So this was during Act 2 where it felt like he wanted her to get her uniqueness because he felt too samey as the other kids. If he spent time with her, that uniqueness would rub off on him essentially.
Yeah,
and she was talking about earlier in the story or later in her life, depending on how you want to phrase things. Which this feels really weird. Trying to figure out how to say it. She asked, "How can you taint our first meeting?" And at the time, I thought, she found out that the only reason why he wanted to talk to her was that he felt like he was the same as everyone else, which was another hint that, twins.
Yeah.
But and the only reason why he talked to her was that, he thought that he would be more unique if he spent time with her.
Right.
And this was also around the scene where he threw away the hacky sack that at her prompting.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. She gives him the hacky sack. And then
he gave her when he gave her the platypus, which that's where that came from.
Right, he gives her the platypus when they're...
Which was also why she kept it all those years, up till the day she died.
Yeah. So the more likely psychological truth is that for some reason that he doesn't understand, he knows that he's connected to her, and that's why he feels like she needs him to make him more unique, to make him not so samey. Because
he knew something was there, but couldn't put his finger on it.
Right.
Because of all the trauma and all the drugs.
Yeah, and also he's been basically become Johnny to his mother.
Joey.
Joey, yeah. He's become Joey to his mother, who calls him Joey, who gives him all of Joey's things and kind of expects him to like them the same way. So he's feeling like he can't be himself.
Well, and also, he wasn't the favorite twin. That came off very apparent.
Yeah.
She always favored Joey.
Yep.
Even though they were identical twins.
Right. So, yeah. Johnny is drawn to River because of all of that. And he doesn't understand. He has no idea because of all these repressed memories. And so that's why he doesn't know why he wants to go to the moon. If I had to give Johnny a diagnosis... it would probably be...
fucked up?
Yeah. It would be something beyond post-traumatic stress. This goes well beyond post-traumatic stress. I'd probably give him dissociative identity disorder with what's called a trauma modifier, because his mom basically treated him like his brother and basically blocked out his entire past from when he was Johnny.
Essentially, erased his identity.
Right.
Or tried to, at least. I mean, granted, in his adult life, he was called Johnny and not Joey, but during childhood, she tried her best to make it so that Johnny didn't exist.
Right.
Which one of the doctors actually brought that up. If she treats him like Joey, what happens to Johnny?
Right. There's a theory online I saw that Joey is actually the brother that is alive, and I'm not quite sure how they come up with that, but...
See, I didn't go too much into wild mass guessing that was online. I poked around a little bit after I read the story, or played the story, or whatever you want to call it. But I didn't go too much into it.
Right. So, okay, that's basically the gist of what I have to say about that. So,
Thank you, Forrest.
You're welcome. That's all I have to say about that. So, moving on to Act 3. The point of Act 3 is that once they've got all this figured out, they basically flip. Up to
that point, Watts was really the go-getter. We're here to do our damn job.
Right. And after that, Rosalind becomes that. And Watts is like, wait a second. If his whole life revolves around River, and if we give him what he wants, or what he thinks he wants, to go to the moon, then we're basically going to have to remove River from his life and then just keep pouring the desire into him to go to the moon. And the only reason he wants to go to the moon is because of River. So it's like, what do? Do we play God and basically erase this guy's entire happy life over a desire that he doesn't understand from repressed memories?
Here's the thing, is that where I got into the ethical problems of it was, if they just unlocked those memories of that first meeting, his complete desire to go to the moon was gone.
Right.
Because he would remember that's why I wanted to go. It was because it was a fallback point if we never met again.
Right. I think this would be a good place for a gameplay mechanic, just to give you a choice. Give you the choice to decide? Do you want to try and
give it a multiple ending?
Yeah. Do you want to try and redo his memories and just hope for the best, or do you leave it the way they are, except by unlocking that memory and giving him that as he died?
That's where also the ethical quandary comes in, where, okay, when they remove River, they also essentially bring back his brother.
Right, they replace River with Joey.
Yeah, and Rosalind actually brings up an interesting point, which I kind of disagree with. You can have more than one River, but you only have one brother. Maybe it's just the fact that I've always been a single child. But removing the love of your life, just completely removing that marriage, and from all the way up to from childhood, is that worth a fake brother? Because remember, he's dead. There's no bringing back Joey.
In the real world, yes.
It's false memories.
In the real world, yes, he's dead. But, I mean, a false memory is all that Joey's actually going to have before he dies. That will become his reality. Johnny, sorry. That will become his reality before he dies. And that's all he will know. So, I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, that's, they bring it up. It's like, it's not our job to play God. We shouldn't be making these decisions. And Rosalind goes ahead and makes it anyways.
Just completely goes over Watts and actually locks him out.
Yeah, which is the one section of the game where it really falls apart. I don't understand why she had to go through all that stuff to like delay him and put in all those weird gameplay mechanics. Yeah. I wonder if this was just a symptom of this game needs gameplay mechanics. Or
it was coming up too short. It felt like the game was a touch too short, and they wanted to try to pad it out for a bit because the shooter segment was, about 5, maybe 10 minutes?
Something like that, yeah.
So they were trying to pad things out, or they just they had the ending that they wanted. They had the middle that they wanted, but they couldn't get the Act 3 to do just right without adding some sort of weird mechanics.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's, I mean, I feel like that part, kind of the first half of Act 1, after their kind of initial discussion about, we should do this, we shouldn't do this, whatever, once it gets into she locks him out, that portion is fairly weak. There's not a lot of story development either. It's just weird. Like, you see a whole bunch of stuff that's out of order from the previous parts of the game, the weird zombie...
Well, I did take, the things being out of order as her meddling with, her starting to meddle with the memories, and it's starting to rearrange itself, and just weird oddities as things are being jumbled around and reprogrammed.
Right.
Yeah, I just took it as that instead of a simple thing of click on river, delete.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
but the zombie things, I will admit, is weird, and also the spikes popping up, and that was just felt odd.
Yeah, and the boulders that come down the hallway and all that stuff.
Yeah, and shooting plants for some reason.
I don't understand why he shoots plants, but whatever works, I guess. I wonder... Oh, never mind. I bet that's a reference to Plants vs. Zombies.
Probably, because the composer for it did the music for Plants vs. Zombies.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's the same composer. Matter of fact, she has a YouTube channel. She's been inactive for a little under 6 months, if I recall correctly, where she did her Plants vs. Zombies music. She did this, and she also did a bunch of covers.
Yeah.
Really pretty music, just overall.
Beautiful music. Best part of the whole game is the music.
Yeah.
So good at reinforcing kind of the feelings which the game wants you to feel without being too pushy about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. Anyway, so Rosalind is going through messing with the memories. Finally, she gets it all done, and calls Watts to come, and they essentially watch the memory play out from what happens from her changes. Joey's still alive.
Yeah, with the one song that has lyrics.
Yeah, the one song that has lyrics.
Everything's going to be all right, I think. Or
yeah, I bawled the whole time. Every time I watch that, I bawl. It's a few minutes long. I mean, it's not super long.
The song's 2 minutes, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably like 2 or 3 minutes long, but that was a solid 2 or 3 minutes of tears. So you go through watching how his life changed and his desire to become an astronaut. And
yeah, just little changes of the scenes that you saw before.
Yeah. And then,
seeing River fade away in the scenes as he comes in.
Right.
Like into the movie theater, she was sitting in the seat with the platypus beside her, a few seats down.
And then she disappears.
Yeah.
So they go through all of that, get to NASA, which is where you pick up and play again for a few more minutes. Basically, you're exploring around what Johnny thinks NASA is like.
Yeah, which NASA got a hell of a budget increase if they have all the sliding doors.
Yeah. And you
either that or you're in Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they say that it's created based on...
I know. It's just one of those things that... who do you really thinks NASA has sliding doors everywhere?
I wish they did, but they definitely don't. So you explore NASA and his creation of NASA, and at some point towards kind of the end, River walks in and joins NASA.
When he was pretty much officially made an astronaut.
Yeah.
Because the entire point of that memory sequence was showing him his ambition becoming an astronaut being fulfilled.
Right. So River shows up, and then it does a few more of those little cutscene style scenes where you walk into a room and it shows the new created memories and how their relationship starts to blossom at NASA. Mm-hmm. And then it gets to the point of the rocket launch.
Why is the shuttle going to the moon?
Kim has really pointed that out. He's upset about that.
Well, I think the thing is that all of us have played Kerbal Space Program, so we know taking the shuttle to the moon is probably a bad idea.
Yeah.
Unless you're Michael Bay.
Yeah, but so they go to the moon launch, or the launch happens, and they're up in space, and they reach out and hold hands. And I can't remember if it's before or after that. There's a rush of all of the the rest of his life that existed before coming true, only it now also has Joey in it. So the getting married, building the house, sitting out by the lighthouse, all of that sort of stuff, that all happens, except with River alive past when she should have died, and also with Joey there.
Yeah, his relationship with River doesn't start until far, far later.
Yes, but I mean, kind of that all of that gets really accelerated, and that's the story. I mean, we left out some of the details, but that's the main gist of the story. So that's the gist of the story. Is there any other aspects you want to explore or discuss?
I had my questions.
Okay, what are your
the first thing I wondered was, and I think it's after really talking about it and thinking about it some more, I realized what they're doing exactly. But at first I wasn't sure if it was adding to the memories that he had, like he would remember both, or if it was a complete overwrite.
No, based on my understanding of the explanation they give of what they do, like in the first few minutes of the game.
Well, remember, this was also the time that I was exceptionally bored with the game.
That is very true. Yeah, they explain it, and I believe...
Very dry.
Yeah. I believe what it is that they overwrite the memories when someone is close to dying, because if they tried doing this with people who weren't, to kind of give them... Get Your Ass to Mars? What's that movie?
Total Recall?
Total Recall. Tried to give them a Total Recall moment with, giving them false memories or whatever to enjoy, and the brain rejects it. So they do it when someone is close to death, so that they can accept the memories, be happy, and then die, and not experience what happens whenever the brain rejects the false memories.
Well, my next question is, how the fuck is that ethical?
In the real world, I don't see how this would be ethical at all.
Or ever allowed. Ever.
No. I don't think that this would be ethical in the current world. I mean, this is set in the future. It's an indefinite, unspecified future, but it's definitely in the future.
It's pronounced the future.
The future! But I don't, unless the ethics of this type of research, because essentially this falls under psychological research. This is incredibly unethical. Creating false memories has been studied before, and on a very, very simple level, like convincing people that, a car was blue when it was actually red, or maybe it was a motorcycle, whatever, like really simple stuff. But actually...
Oh, that's that damn dress again, isn't it?
But actually rewriting someone's entire life would be insanely
unethical. Even if it's,
unethical.
The day they die, that just seems so unethical.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a fictional universe told to make a point. But in the real world, unless there's some major changes in ethics, this would be 100% illegal, unethical to do.
Okay, my next question is, did the events of the story even happen?
What do you mean by that?
Well, did you not watch past the credits?
Oh, yeah,
played this game 3 times.
I've watched past the credits, yeah.
The segment where the red flash and Watts is on screen and he's taking painkillers. A matter of fact, that's a loose end, is that he's popping painkillers like crazy in the third act.
Yeah, he is.
And they never really explain that. Granted, this is episode 1 of probably 3 episodes.
Yeah, there are too many episodes, which, I mean, we're not going to cover because they're not related to this at all, that come with this game. Well, they're
related a little bit, but they're not much.
They give kind of some extra context to Watts and Rosalind and some things like that, but they don't directly relate to the main focus of the To the Moon story. There's also is it a Bird's Tale or a Bird Story?
A Bird Story. I haven't played it yet.
Which is a loose kind of in this same universe game, but it's not a direct sequel. The actual direct sequel to this game is supposed to release end of this year, first of next year.
Yeah, it's called Finding Paradise, I believe.
Yeah. So I'm really, really pumped
that little bit at the end made me really wonder, did the events of the story even take place, and is it one of the 2 doctors, possibly Watts, because he was the one on screen, and actually my poking around one of the things I did find was that during the mock battle that happens in the very first act, before they even plug into the memories, where they're going to fight the squirrel.
Yeah.
People think Watts is sick and dying, but partly because of the painkillers, but also during that mock battle, everyone's full health. But if you choose to use Watts to look around the mansion, during that false battle, he doesn't have a full health bar.
I did not notice that. I don't.
That's something I found after the fact, though. Someone mentioned it. So it makes me wonder if it's the events of the story even took place, and if it's one of the doctors that's a person dying and wanted to go help people.
I think if it's one of the doctors who's dying, I think it's actually Rosalind. Because you'll notice when the screen flashes red, Watts looks around because he notices it. Mm-hmm. And the people who are actually are in their memories, they don't notice when those things happen. So I think that if that's actually true and it's not just Watts experiencing pain and that's why he's taking the painkillers for whatever reason, I think Watts is actually the one who is guiding the memory, and Rosalind is the one who's dying.
And Watts is sick for another reason.
Yeah, which might be explained in the sequel. I have played the mini episodes. We chose not to use them for this week. And there's no mention of anything other than some more stuff about Watts' family and his grandfather. There's some extra context in that, which Watts' grandfather comes up in the main story. And Watts has got a troubled relationship with his parents. So I don't know if the painkillers are in reference to that. Maybe he was abused and he's suffering long-term injuries or something.
Or it's just House.
Yeah, he could just be House. But I mean, that's pure speculation. All it says is that he's got problems with his family. That's the gist of that little storyline. So I don't know. I mean, anything's possible. I could be misreading it, but I think notices,
I'm pretty much convinced that it's one of the doctors. It's just, also it could be, if he's been in it long term, maybe he notices it.
Perhaps he also could be experiencing side effects from doing
the painkillers
for a long side effects from the painkillers, or side effects from just doing the memory job for a long time. Because they also mentioned that if someone if there's a problem and basically the memory space collapses and someone is still inside, that it could do damage to someone who's inside. So Watts could have experienced one of those as well. Again, pure speculation.
Yeah.
Okay, other questions that you had?
Let's see. Well, there was also the who's in the right, Watts or Rosalind, in Act 3. And that's something I really went back and forth on, because yes, they were doing their job, but at the same time, were they right doing their job?
My personal standpoint...
That's something we kind of covered, though, already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my personal standpoint on it is I think Watts is right.
As soon as you find out that the reason why he was trying to go to the moon would have been, completely gone as soon as he had those memories unlocked, assuming that he could have unlocked those memories with the machine. Yeah.
Being a therapist, actually being placed in similar sort of situations, because this is actually, I think on a very kind of metaphorical level, this is representative of the therapy process. Because basically, whenever you're dealing with someone with trauma, you start in the future, you start in the now, and you work your way back to the past, to the event. And when you get to the event, then you explore and just see where it goes. So having been in this situation, I've actually been with clients who have, unlocked, unsurfaced, whatever, these memories of a traumatic experience. And when they actually are able to go back through them, so much about their world can change. And, clients come to therapy with goals, basically. And depending on what they might find out, if it's a trauma case, I'm not going to continue to push on the exact same goals that they had.
Yeah.
And I mean, in this story, they're in kind of a unique position where they can't find out what he wants to do.
Because by the time they even get there, he's unconscious.
Right. But, by my standard of ethics, if that happens, we have to reevaluate what are we going to do. And so I think that Watts was right. They shouldn't have changed it. And if I had been given the choice, I wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah, this is a game that really could have used multiple endings.
Yeah. So,
granted, what could they have really done ending-wise, because he was already unconscious, so it would have been the housekeeper and the doctor.
Right. So
yeah, maybe that's the reason why they didn't have the multiple story or the multiple endings, was just the story didn't allow it.
Yeah,
so they had to go for kind of a not great way to resolve things, just because once again, I agree with you that Act 3, or at least that segment of Act 3, was by far the weakest part of the story.
Yeah. I do respect their decision to tell the story that they told. I still love it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't like the story any less just because we've talked about it, and I've kind of had this realization because I hadn't thought about that before. But I still love the story. It's great at what it does, but I do wish that I would have had the choice. But I think that they just kind of had a story they wanted to tell, wound up kind of writing themselves into a corner, and that's what they had to go with. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, I love this game. Yeah. It's a game that universally, not universally, but the majority of people who review it or talk about it positively. And I do think the story they told was incredible. But, hindsight, and potentially for the series going forward, it would be nice to have choices and a bit more interactivity.
Yeah, and I do wish they would have said that this was an episodic story from the outset.
I don't think it was. I remember when this game came out, and I remembered when I got it, and there was really no mention of anything, and then all of a sudden...
Well, it wasn't until the very end of the credits they say Episode 1. So did they pull Lucas and add an episode number to it?
I don't remember Episode 1 being in there when I played this in 2012. And I think A Bird Story came out in 2013? 2014?
So maybe they decided to make it episodic and at some point and just added that little bit to the credits.
Yeah, they might have done that. Again, I'm not sure, because I did not play this game at release. I bought it on a Steam sale, long time ago at this point.
And this was the first time I played it. I will say that because of how dry the opening was, I would have probably just dropped this if it wasn't for the game club.
Yeah. I got into it a lot faster than you did. I mean, even when I played it, I still had psychological knowledge and experience and education. I just lacked the actual therapy experience. So I noticed a lot of things that I didn't notice the first time I played it. And I still caught a lot the first time I played. So.
Yeah, well, I probably would have caught a lot more if I Googled more. The thing is, I realized that I was going to be talking to you about this.
Yeah.
And anything I Googled would have been pale in comparison to what you could have told me.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions or any?
No, that was it. We already covered, what did she die of? And what was the other one that I had? The ethics part.
I have one little kind of reference point that I think is really important to this whole story.
All right.
So the company they work for is called Sigmund Corp.
Yeah, Sigmund Freud. I caught that.
That one's a pretty obvious one. I think that one's so obvious that they want people to go look that up and start trying to figure out what's going on. Because Sigmund Freud...
but sometimes a company name is just a company name.
That is fair. But Sigmund Freud said something along the lines, and this is not an exact quote because I don't remember the exact quote, but dreams are the pathway to the subconscious mind. And essentially, he's in a coma when they get there. I mean, he's unconscious. He's not been conscious for a while. I think it's a coma. It could just be part of his sickness, and he's just sleeping. But regardless,
or
memories...
Or just be medically induced because he was in too much pain.
Yeah, but regardless...
Because we don't know what he was dying of, do we?
No, we don't know.
We just know that he was, in his last 24, 36 hours.
Yeah. I mean, he's just an old man who's dying, basically. He had some kind of illness. They make reference to an illness, but... Anyways, dreams are often analogous.
And it was within a week of him being up and around to the point where he was dead.
Yeah.
Because they mentioned when you find one of the rabbits, I think it was in the lighthouse, the housekeeper said that she was in there and it wasn't there before.
Yeah.
And that was a week ago, so.
But anyways, dreams are often used in analogous to memories, and we know from psychological research and medical study that dreams are a way for the mind to process and basically categorize memories. What do I keep? What do I throw away? That sort of thing. So
Yeah, what the fuck is this?
So I mean, that was like, blatantly obvious. And I think that's their hook, to try and get people who are really interested in learning more. It's like, oh, Sigmund, I know Sigmund Freud. I wonder if there's something to this. And then that and Tony Atwood a little bit later on in the story. So, I mean, I could go on and on and on about this game for a long time.
And we have.
And we have, yeah. We've been doing this for roughly an hour, and we still have our 2 audio letters to tack on. Mm-hmm. So I think to hear some other people's perspective, because Chemist really gets into the technical side of the game.
Yeah, and that's where I deducted points, was the technical side of things.
I didn't really care about that. I was so engrossed in this story.
Well, remember, I was coming to this blind, so I focused more on the gameplay and the technical side before getting into the story.
Right, and I am definitely a story-first guy.
And I'm also a lot harder critic than you.
I can be a very harsh critic. I really can be, but if
but that's my general, that's my default position.
Yeah, usually for me, if a game has 1 or 2 good enough aspects, I can look past, still acknowledge, but look past its flaws. And between the phenomenal story, at least to me, I mean, I have a certain personal connection to the story, which makes me, I think, a bit biased in its favor. And I, absolutely acknowledge that. I probably should have put that as a disclaimer before we start talking about the story. But regardless, I love the story. And the soundtrack is, I think, unarguably amazing.
Yeah, it's by far the best part. We've said that a couple of times already, but it's true.
And those things just so overwhelm me that it's like, for me, this game takes story and dials it up to 11. And I've always been more into story than anything. So I love this game, and I could not recommend it more to anybody who's interested in story and or psychology. What about you? Would you recommend this game or not?
Yeah, I would recommend this game, but I would preface it with saying that it does have the technical issues. And be sure that whoever I was recommending it to is aware that it is a very old RPG Maker game, and it has the albatross of that engine. Right, yeah. It doesn't get in the way of the enjoyment for the most part, but there are some segments that it does.
Yeah. Let's shoehorn in some more video game mechanics sections. Yeah. Okay, well, that does it for us on To the Moon. Let's hear from Chemist first, and then Kyle, what they want. And when we come back...
Kyle got in right under the wire.
Literally minutes before we started recording.
Yeah, I went down to get a drink and came back. Oh, there's another letter here.
Yeah. So, but yeah, after we hear from both of them, we'll come back to talk about what our next Game Club game is going to be.
Yep.
And so we'll see you on the other side. Here's Chemist and Kyle.
Greetings everybody, Kmis here again. Here is my submission for yet another Video Game Logic podcast fortnightly game club, which for whatever reason still exists. This time relaying my impressions of To the Moon, most of it written during the playthrough or shortly thereafter. I was provided a Steam key for this game by Jared, partially as our deal for the recommendation giveaway. By the way, that was a Facebook post, got couple victims to listen. Over the course of this audio letter, I will try to keep this fact in mind and minimize possible bias created by the game being a gift, but just to be on the safe side, I am hereby denouncing Jared and all relationship we hit her to head. I have to preserve my journalistic integrity. As much as it pains me to open with technical details, I really need to bitch about the engine. To the Moon was created in an old version of RPG Maker, and I sincerely hope that it will one day get ported to any other PC engine. The game runs at a modern resolution of 640x480, which on a 1080p screen in windowed mode occupies less than a quarter of available space. Full screen is much better, bar the black bars on the side. Just keep in mind it will completely fuck up your desktop, rearranging all icons, or, if like me you only have 2 folders labeled porn and not porn, but like to have the taskbar on the side, change its size, which you'll have to correct for after every session. Also, there is visible screen tearing and no option to correct for it, so unless you're running a setup with G-Sync, FreeSync or any similar tech, you're stuck with it. And it doesn't even get close to the horror that is the control scheme. Prior to the install, I've done some research and discovered that the game supports direct input controllers. That's great. Running the game with the gamepad plugged in, I can confirm that is indeed the case. That's fantastic. The options menu I had to go through to correct for the swap buttons is a standard Windows pop-up summoned with the F1 key and doesn't properly deal with mouse support, so you're stuck with using tab and arrow keys, navigating menus that instead of binding actions to inputs, list a random sample of gamepad buttons and keyboard keys, each assignable with an action labeled A, B, C, X, Y, Z, L or R, without any explanation what they actually do. That's slightly less awesome. Later on I find that it's only the B and C buttons that actually do anything, C being action confirm and B being menu cancel. I also noticed that your character only moves in cardinal directions on a square grid, so playing with an analog stick, the D-pad doesn't work, no arrow remapping, is suboptimal, so I switched to keyboard. It still feels very clunky, especially with no clear indication of which items you can interact with. Similar issues are encountered trying to just move around and bumping into invisible walls. Finally, seeing as all button prompts call for a mouse, I swapped one last time, and even though having the cursor change its appearance when hovering over different objects helps, it doesn't highlight the hitboxes, which are sometimes really poorly drawn, and objects often blend into the background, leaving you pixel hunting and clicking everything multiple times to make sure there aren't more things to click right next to one another. Never mind the fact that due to reduced resolution, cursor sensitivity is way too high with no option to turn it down a notch, and mouse acceleration completely freaks out if you don't hold your hand perfectly still. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You play as a pair of agents working for a sort of Make-A-Wish company, Doctors Eva Rosalind and Neil Watts. After a less than successful squirrel dodge and parking your car around a tree, you arrive at the house of yet another client, an older gentleman by the name of John Wiles, or Johnny as he prefers to be called. Choosing the character you want to primarily control, you are shown around the scenery by local kids as your partner in crime sets the equipment up. Going through rooms creepily filled with origami rabbits and an amusing sequence where the game pretends to be a classic JRPG for a second, you take in the exposition before getting summoned back into Johnny's bedroom and have another load of exposition dumped on you. The action takes place in near future where the Zygmunt Corporation you work for develop a memory manipulation technology. Your job is to explore people's memories to construct the avatar holding all of their personality and incept it with the desire to fulfill whatever goal they failed to pursue, allowing the desire to evolve in simulated reality free of constraints of daily life, and ultimately modifying the actual memories of the client, making them believe they accomplish whatever you were contracted for. Your job this time is to get Johnny to the moon. First act consists primarily of going from cutscene to cutscene. You enter a memory, greeted by whatever is happening here and now, usually an event that proves itself important to the evolution of Johnny as a person. You are then tasked to find 5 memory links, obtained either by interacting with objects, talking to people, or plain exploration of the scenery and activating the memento that will make Johnny recall an earlier time, moving further and further into the past. The gameplay in this section isn't phenomenal. At best it's obvious where to find all links. At worst you'll get stuck pixel hunting and wondering whether you didn't softlock the game by doing something out of order. Even the activation of the memento, which is supposed to be a variant of a lights out puzzle, only takes at most 6 moves, all of them quite clear, even if your first guess was blind. What I do have to comment is the use of technicality of memory simulation, with your characters often commenting on and using the ability to manipulate, reset and toggle aspects of their experience, and the memories themselves lacking detail a person is naturally bound to forget. Second act is a rather short, amusing skit based on the failure in inserting the desire in Johnny's earlier memories. The inception itself seems to work correctly, but doesn't actually affect later events in any significant way. Eva and Neil then go into manual mode, jumping around memories and interrupting them with an informational level of acting, only to keep the desire alive, but to no avail. It is finally revealed by Neil contacting the agency that their client as a young child received a large dose of memory-suppressing medication, probably to help him cope with some traumatic event. This explains why the inception didn't work and why you couldn't access the areas of the memories. And the only solution to recalling them is to throw a rotting squirrel on a dying man's face. Finally, the third act allows you to go back to the very beginning and experience everything that had been hidden, including the very reason why it had been blocked in the first place. Unfortunately, I had a hard time taking the scene seriously, as it is difficult to create any dramatic impact with an animation containing 2 static sprites moving over the course of 3 frames, each 5 seconds long. Cinematic 0.2 FPS everyone. No Man's Sky can eat its heart out. With the grand reveal out of the way, the game doesn't take too long to conclude, and I can honestly say that the stargazing scene is my favorite out of all the visuals. If only it wasn't followed by the most infuriating shit show of a game mechanic just after that. I will now take the opportunity to make one of the most technical and specific nitpicks, but if anyone is even able to understand, never mind agree with what I'm saying, it will be the VGL and the Kerbalcast community. Hold on to your strat, boom goes the booster. As the game prepares for final credits with the camera slowly panning up from the cockpit window to the titular moon, I am suddenly jerked away from whatever feels I've been feeling and thrown into mild annoyance and scientific superiority. Because of course, in order to make the scene, the game artist decided to send Johnny, River and their companions to the moon on a space shuttle. Come on. The Space Shuttle, or Space Transportation System as it is its proper name, was specifically designed for trips to low Earth orbit and International Space Station and back. The orbiter itself, after jettisoning the external tank, barely had any delta V left, most of it in form of reaction control system used for docking, nowhere near 4 km per second required to go from LEO to just a lunar flyby. And even if we allow for the benefit of the doubt and have it miraculously obtain the Delta V budget to land on the moon and go back, it ain't gonna do any landing as it was designed to land on Earth. You know what Earth has but Moon doesn't? Long, flat landing strips. And atmosphere. Anyone who plays Kerbal knows how difficult it is to land horizontally on a body where neither wings nor aerobrakes work, without retrograde thrusters, and KSP is not exactly known for realistic surface modeling. Last time I checked, terrain scatter including lunar rocks was still labeled as an experimental feature with missing hitboxes. The only way a space shuttle would be useful on a trip to the moon is if there was an intermediate station somewhere in LEO where all passengers move onto a different vessel, preferably with a third stage docked at yet another station around the lunar orbit, if you want to make it fully reusable. And if that were the case, I want to see it. That's way better than all the artsy though generic space shuttle shots. Apologies for this digression, but having gone through the 5 or so hours the game took me to complete, I am still having a hard time writing down any conclusions. I haven't even mentioned the art and sound design, probably the strongest points of the game. The graphics are solid 16-bit pixel art, exactly what you expect from RPG Maker, but probably executed better than most games I've seen, with the possible exception of having the important parts of the scenery barely distinguishable from the background. The soundtrack, however, is an entirely different case. I now fully understand why it's always at the very top of video game OST charts and sales lists. Were it not for the piano track accompanying the story, I'd be much more willing to agree with Neil that it's yet another cheesy romance novel. It is often forgotten how important sound effects are, perhaps because a job well done is barely noticeable, empowering different parts of the experience instead of attracting attention to its own. The only part of it I can possibly complain about is that towards the end the sad and scary track gets played way too often, detracting from its own significance. Speaking of complaining, let's tackle the elephant in the room. I've mentioned it briefly a couple times, but mostly carefully avoided the topic just so I can sum up everything in the following sentence. To the Moon is not a good game. It doesn't mean it's a bad experience not worth the time and money investment. It just means that as a representative of interactive media, it fails miserably to provide any interactivity. I'll briefly go over every single game mechanic in chronological order. Don't worry, it shouldn't take long. First, you're walking and interacting with objects and people. That's a game, right? I'd call it more of a walking sim, but the simulation part of it is not quite up to par, as it is hard to tell where you can go or not in the first place. A JRPG spoof that I've mentioned a while ago only lasts a turn. Then there is the memento preparation puzzle, except it's so trivial it's hard to call it a challenge. Finding memory links is not really a game mechanic either, more of a progress bar. Every link is something you have to interact with, and everything you can interact with is a memory link. Passing the desire to area memories was quite challenging, but only because it wasn't properly explained to me that you can do it piece by piece, then trivial again. And last but definitely not least, the chase sequence first has you dodge traps that are impossible to dodge because they fully block the path, so you have to keep bumping into them until they despawn, and later gives you a gun that shoots spotted plants at zombified clones of your partner that can't actually harm you, in a pathetic excuse of a twin stick shooter. Oh, and there's also a literal whack-a-mole at the carnival with imprecise mouse controls, but don't worry, you can absolutely fail it and still be allowed to progress. Overall, the game mechanics present in To the Moon are nowhere near a complete package, and are much closer to what in software engineering we call a minimum viable product, a basic demo showing crude versions of major functionalities and how they interact with each other. Aside from memory links and mementos, every single mechanic I've described appears only once, and that's great because I'd be annoyed if I had to play them multiple times. The only choice you ever make is between controlling Eva and Neil, but not having seen the aftermath of alternative choice, I can only guess it doesn't matter much. Even in a single point where you could make a statement by refusing to continue the game, there is no point to stop as you're not the one pulling the trigger. At this point, I'd really like to say To the Moon would be much better as, let's say, a short novel. But I seriously can't because I think it doesn't contain enough content to be anything but a video game. I just wish it would be done in an engine that isn't shit, and with mechanics that are either well fleshed out or just plain cut from the final product. It's one of those experiences where you get annoyed not because it was bad, but because it could be so much better. I bemoan the lost potential. As a wise man once said, it's an average obtained by adding 0 to 100 and dividing by 2. Thank you, Jared, for allowing me to experience it. And fuck you for having me suffer through it. Kmis, signing off.
Greetings, J. Arthur and Caffeine Rage. This is Kyle coming to you from the woods, but that doesn't stop me. I'll find a tree with a USB port. Let's do this. So let's talk about the video game club game, To the Moon. And I think it is a phenomenal game, mostly for its story. And here to discuss that with me is my wonderful girlfriend, Meliora. Meliora?
Hello.
So, Meliora and I, there's actually a story there. We've been dating for like 3 years at the point that we watched Markiplier's playthrough of the game, because I thought it would be a better experience if we could just watch it on the TV rather than just huddle around a computer screen. And I had seen it a couple of times before that, and I played it once. So, it's the only story that can consistently make me cry. And basically, she had never seen me cry, so she wanted to see me cry. And that sounds horrible out of context, I guess. But so the gameplay, from both what I remember and watching some YouTubers play it, it's mostly just kind of like a scavenger hunt sort of thing. And it kind of works, and it makes you interact with the environment in order to make sure that you're hitting all of the key story beats, so that you're learning everything in a reverse order, kind of like Memento. But that having been said, I think it's an interesting structure in that all of the happiness that you see in the early life with John and River, you know how that's going to end. You know where that's going to end up. And that's why I feel that the first act of the story, where they're just going back through his memories, is so moving, and it's absolutely necessary to set up the next couple of acts. Do you have anything to say about this, hon?
Yeah, it's just... I'm not sure why it gets you to cry, but I think it's just knowing, once you work backwards to where it all started, and then jumping forward to try and fix everything is sort of what makes you cry, because you know that there's stuff there that some people forgot and they can't fix it at all.
Yeah, I suppose that's pretty right, but the other thing, I guess, is, and now we're getting to spoiler territory, which is what the game club is about, I suppose. Well, not directly, but you know what I'm saying. The endings to the game. Yes, endings. I really like how they did a little bait and switch with John and River at fake NASA, or FNASA. NASA! 5 Nights at NASA. Anyway, so, I like the little bait and switch that they did there, saying that River was psychologically important enough to John that she would be there for him, and the fact that they, I don't know if you guys interpreted it this way, but they got very close to the moon. They didn't actually get onto the moon, but, they had each other, and that was the whole point of him wanting to go to the moon. Which was interesting because at the beginning of the game, Johnny says he doesn't know why he wants to go to the moon. And once the male doctor, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, found out that he wanted to go because of what they had experienced as children, that would be River and John, that he wanted to make sure that he remembered River rather than going to the moon and forgetting about her. Which was a pretty interesting dichotomy. Han, would you care to comment?
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. Also, even though they got very close to the moon, they did sort of achieve it as far as, except for actually landing on the moon, they were pretty much on their way, which, with, the rockets and everything, pretty much covered his wish. And then it also included actually meeting up with his childhood friend again. So, I guess that's even the more important overarching theme there.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And the final thing I want to bring up is the after-credit stinger, where the male doctor is at the lighthouse after they're out of Johnny's head and after everything else. You see a red flash, as you'd seen when Johnny became less stable during the story, and you hear a little bit of a heartbeat monitor, which to me suggests that, I don't know, one of the two doctors may not be who they think they are. They may have signed up in order to, I don't know, rectify a bad life by helping others have a good life in their dying days. But the interesting thing is, the doctor at the lighthouse notices it. They look around a little bit. And so what I think is happening there is because I remember in the beginning of the game when that would happen a couple of times, the people inside the simulation, the memories, they wouldn't notice that. So I don't think it was the doctor at the lighthouse whose head they're inside of. I'm not sure whose head they're inside of, but that's really intriguing, and I can't wait for the true sequel to this game to come out and just not even necessarily give us some answers right away, but I'd like to see this story and idea move forward a little bit, so long as the writing is as excellent as it is in this game. Hun, do you have any wrap-up thoughts?
It reminded me a lot of that one movie where they go into a person's head to try and erase memories based on, like, I guess in the movie the example was a relationship gone bad, and the guy wanted to...
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, that was it. Which, in this case, instead of erasing a memory or a person from memory, it's more of rearranging the memories, but having everything there, but still, or having everything important there, but still altered so that way there's still a happy ending.
Yeah, I suppose so. Anyways, we are incredibly looking forward to hearing this game club, once we, get back to civilization. So, yeah, hope you all are having a wonderful evening, and I look forward to this.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for sending in your audio letters.
Yeah,
about-
do we really have anything to respond to that on? I mean,
I don't think so. I mean,
I think we pretty much covered everything in there.
Spending pretty much an hour, give or take, for the editing, talking about that game. I think that they hit the points that we missed, and we do actually need to move on so that we can.
It was nice for. I hope you don't mind me calling you Mel instead of just butchering your name.
I was really happy to have Mel here. Yeah, that was a nice surprise. I sent you a chat on Skype, and I was like, "Hey, Kyle sends the auto letter," and then like immediately after that, when Mel comes on, I was like, "Oh, and there's a surprise for this week, a nice surprise." So, Mel, you should send in more stuff if you listen to the show. I know that Kyle
even
does.
if even on your own.
Yeah, even on your own.
Yeah, you don't have to bring Kyle along.
You're a strong, independent woman. You don't need no man. I really hope you know that I'm joking. Kyle's great. You're pretty cool too, based on how the bit that I've interacted with you. But anyways, enough of mending that fence. Let's discuss our next Game Club game. So
okay, on Twitter, I posted a poll last week. Well, actually, it was Tuesday when it was when it went out. Tuesday or Wednesday, I can't remember which. I think it was actually Wednesday. Now I think about it. So you had 6 days to vote on this, and I tweeted this out 3 or 4 times already. And I probably should have put it on the Steam group as well, but I didn't. It's going to be next time.
I forgot about that too. Yeah, we should be better about that. This is still learning for us people, like we said.
Yeah, this whole community interaction thing. We're working on it. I think we're doing all right, all things considered.
I think so. We're definitely trying hard, and hopefully that gives us bonus points. But regardless, we had this poll up for a while.
3 games on the poll. We had Stacking, Papers, Please, and MechWarrior Online with 13 votes. Stacking got a whopping 0 votes. MechWarrior Online got 6 votes, with Papers, Please getting 7. So Papers, Please is the next Game Club game. And this poll was actually deadlocked when we started recording. And I tweeted out one last time to try to get one more vote.
Papers, Please.
Because I didn't want to get the coin of decision making out.
Yeah. So Papers, Please was like 3 or 4 votes ahead. I checked, I think, on Saturday. It was 3 or 4 votes ahead. And you texted me before, like maybe an hour before we started recording, like, have you seen the poll? And it was 6-6. So Papers, Please just...
Yeah, Papers, Please was just trouncing MechWarrior Online. And it had an amazing comeback.
Yeah, so our next game is going to be Papers, Please, which is another feels game.
Yeah, I think next poll is going to have no feels game in it.
Yeah. I think I want to put MechWarrior Online back in the poll. I'd like to see how it does versus other things.
Just because it got so many votes?
Yeah, I think it deserves to go another round.
Do you think it got so many votes just because it was up against Papers, Please and Stacking? Granted, Stacking I think was it obviously is the less popular two, but it's the less well-known of the two.
Maybe. I don't know.
Because I don't think a lot of people would know Stacking. Maybe I should have put who the developer was on this.
Can you put links in a straw poll?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to have to test that.
If you can, we could just put links to each of the games.
Well, the thing is that it's pretty much just text-based, so I don't think I would be able to unless it's just the raw link, and that's going to be very ugly.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, we'll come up with some new games for the next poll. And if you guys disagree, you don't want MechWarrior Online back in the poll, please let us know. But I really want to play MechWarrior.
You have a week to let us know.
Yeah, I really want to play MechWarrior. Like, neither of us voted in this poll. We wanted to make it as much community-oriented as possible. And if we had a tie, we were going to flip a coin for a tie.
Yeah, if we had the tie, we had the coin of decision-making.
And then if we had a 3-way tie, we would have just, I don't know.
We would have had the virtual die of decision-making.
Yeah. I could go get some real dice out of my board game cabinet, but yeah, whatever. So yeah, we will be playing Papers, Please for our next Game Club, which is in 2 weeks.
Yeah, which this has actually changed our numbers because we missed an episode. So now it's the even episodes that has the Game Club.
Yeah, I guess I was going to say, well, it didn't change, but you're talking about episode numbers, not dates.
Yeah.
Because we had that discussion too. You thought it was going to change the date. And I was like, no.
I was in the middle of trying to get a hold of you, so I didn't sit around and think about it.
Right. But yeah, so Game Clubs will currently be on even numbered episodes. That's a good way to remember it. Anyways, okay. so that is that. We've been recording for over 2 hours now. And we've got 20 minutes of letter audio from Game Club to go in. So, do you want to move to Community Corner and bypass the news section this week?
Oh, so hyped to talk about being an entitled gamer. But this comes up so often, I guess we could talk about it another time.
Okay. So then let's move on to our Community Corner, where we're going to hear from Kyle again. Kyle sent us this audio letter last week when my power went out. So
yeah, this has been fermenting.
Right.
It's aged to perfection.
So here's Kyle talking about math again. And I know I sound so enthused.
Wow.
Greetings, J. Arthur and Caffeine Rage. This is Kyle coming at you this week with math. Or more precisely, a very weird phenomenon called zip distribution. That is Zulu, Indigo, Papa, Foxtrot distribution. Now it's nifty in that it explains word usage within language, it explains word length, it kind of dictates how we live and what cities we live in on this planet, and it's a really weird phenomenon that nobody has actually been able to pin down exactly why it works, but basically what it means is that 20%, the top 20% of all things used are used 80% of the time. So, for example, the top 20% of the largest cities in the world hold roughly 80% of the world's population. And you can trace this on down through most frequent word use in English and whatnot. But the point is, what does this have to do with video games? Well, a lot more than you actually might think. You see, with video games, especially RPGs, zip distribution actually kind of dictates how you're going to play. And I'm going to choose to talk about Dark Souls in this light, not because it's pissing Rage off. We'll get to that when the tweets come around. It's because, well, Dark Souls isn't actually that big. Once you can get your head around the size and shape of it, there's actually not a lot there. It's well designed, and I could spend the next 30 minutes salivating over it, but come on, you guys have places to be. You see, Dark Souls, and this is why zip distribution is just a really good example of this, Dark Souls is an equipment-based RPG. You can change your equipment, and that effectively changes what class you are. Once you get past the early levels where you're not really spec'd for much outside of your starting class, you can really change your class at will, and stats are only necessary to get leveled for really specific weapons that, in all honesty, you're probably not going to use because of zip distribution. The weird thing is, unless you consciously go out of your way to do this, you're probably only going to use roughly 20% of all of the gear that you amass in the game, and if you're very, very good at collecting things, even less than that. What you'll do is you'll find an optimal set of armor or weapons or swords or what have you, and you're just going to keep using and upgrading those. Now that is a positive reinforcement cycle. The more you upgrade, say, your Lightning Uchi Katana, the more you're going to use your Lightning Uchi Katana until it's a plus 10 Lightning Uchi Katana, and I think that actually might be the nerdiest thing I've ever said on this podcast. So what is this? Well, kind of a design tip, but kind of something to notice when you're playing video games. See, you don't really need that many weapons for a particular, class to use. For example, as far as clerics go in Dark Souls, there's a mace, another mace, a couple hammers, and then maybe like one legendary mace. And that's really all there is. There's only about 5 weapons to choose from if you want to be a mace guy. Now, you contrast that with something like Shadows of Mordor, which just loads you down with tons of different options and upgrades and really cool ways to go about upsetting the apple cart as far as Sauron's army. And you kind of get spoiled for choice, and zip distribution rears its head there too. You're really only going to focus on a few upgrades, and you're just going to use those upgrades more than anything else. And in fact, if you don't use it on a regular basis, you might accidentally do it, but then you're probably going to forget you even had it. So what does this mean for you as a gamer? Well, not a whole lot, except basically, if you take a look, a lot of games kind of follow this principle, where you're going to have about 5 different choices, and that's by design. Now, there are some games that offer more, but then there's other things to counterbalance that, and eventually you get to a point of unoptimization. Here's how it is. If you design a game, make no more than 5 different options that are all viable for any particular class, because anything more than that is a waste, because people are going to just invest whatever time they have in the thing they already have the most time invested into. Was there a point to this? I don't know. ZIF distribution is really cool, and it's pretty prevalent in a lot of areas of life, so I'm kind of hoping that this is a jumping off point for a conversation topic. I look forward to hearing about it. Hope y'all are having a good night.
And that was Kyle discussing ZIP distribution, which I have never heard of that name for before, but I am familiar with that.
I have kind of noticed it a couple of weeks ago, just before he sent in this audio letter. I was doing a little bit of time in South Park, The Stick of Truth, which I'll eventually talk about some more once I beat the game. It's just because of the frame rate lock on, it gives me a lot of eye strain after a while.
Yeah.
Which I really hope that they have 60 FPS, even though it would make the characters look a little too fluid just because of how South Park is.
Right.
But I kind of noticed that, wow, I am not using 80% of what I'm got.
Yeah. Well, games like South Park, and a lot of RPGs do this, which Kyle mentioned, have really...
padding.
Yeah. Like, they've really only got, depending on what type of character you're playing, a few pieces of equipment or gear that you're going to be funneled towards in order to be the best at that class based on your play style. And
Best that ever was?
I want to be the very best. So, I mean, that's really common in games, I think. I think
South Park may be a little bit more unique in that, just that because of how the game is set up, where there are some areas that are locked off, almost Metroidvania-like, where you need certain abilities to access them.
Yeah.
But the rest of the overworld, spending enough time in town, you'll eventually find the loot. So I think part of it may just be, they pad out the loot table just so you don't have to search the entire town to find the one weapon in town.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of stuff that, just really isn't important. And also, a lot of it is just lore as well, or, show references.
Right. I think in a lot of cases, this is actually due to some psychological things. For example, when it comes to choices, most people are really bad at making a decision when they have an overabundance of choices. I mean,
really?
Yeah.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, we experience this on a regular basis. We have the first world problem of having a video game.
The choosing.
Yeah, we have a game library. Me, that's got over 400 games, and you over 1,000 games.
I actually looked at my library earlier. I'm creeping just shy of 1,300 entries on Steam. And that's on my profile.
I'm making a scowly face at you for being envious of your large library.
1,295 games on my list.
God. Oh, I both love you and hate you. But regardless.
I've gotten several levels just from pure experience on my Steam library.
Yeah. But people are really bad at making large numbers of choices. So game designers try and funnel you into making more choices on fewer items so that you don't kind of experience this psychological, fear of making this choice and shy away from their game. And then in other aspects, like when Kyle was talking about cities, there might be another explanation for this. I mean, I'm not a mathematician, and there's a lot of things in this world that I'm not an expert of. But when it does come to psychology...
Not even on TV?
Well, on TV, I'm an expert in a lot of things, if you know what I mean. Wink.
Oh, you're on one of those channels.
Yeah, I am, baby. But anyways, people tend to flock to where other people are. People like to belong. People like to be in places where things happen. And cities, the large cities that attract all the population has all these things. And so there's these desires that people have to go fit in, go be a part of, the biggest, best city in the world, whatever it is. I think that's at least a part explanation for why that happens. But again, there are a lot of things that probably play into this that I'm definitely not an expert on. I mean, it's really interesting, and it is very present in a lot of games. I mean, I've noticed that in games for a long time, like kind of being funneled down paths. I didn't realize that there was a mathematical formula to describe that, but I'm not surprised. There's a mathematical formula for pretty much everything. But
yeah, including mathematical formulas.
So, yeah. Cool thing to point out to us, bro. Appreciate it. More maths and stuff. I wonder what should we request that he sends in for next week? Do we have any like law things that we need advice on?
Not really, because I think we skipped over what we would have had him writing in for. So whatever you want.
Actually, you know what, Kyle? Do that. God, we're going to talk about this at some point. And there's going to be a big kerfuffle at some point revolving around No Man's Sky and the whole refund issue that has been going on with Steam. Kyle, I want you to look into the legalities of that for us. And how legal/illegal is it for Steam to be denying refunds for No Man's Sky that people are asking for on the grounds that
the false
advertising principle?
Well, have you been to the No Man's Sky Steam page recently?
Oh yeah, there are thousands of threads that have been started.
No, not that.
Where Steam put up the little orange box saying that
the standard Steam refund policy applies to No Man's Sky. There are no special exemptions available.
Which there's lots of documented evidence of.
Well, here's the thing, and we are on a terrible tangent right now, talking about No Man's Sky again. But
yeah,
what the hell? Let's put it this way: talking about No Man's Sky and just the clusterfuck around it, I think is infinitely more fun to me than actually playing that fucking game.
Yeah, next week we will make it a point. It's just going to be on the topic list. I think this just needs a little more time to develop because we're only 2 days in to this fiasco. The short version of this, which we will cover in more depth, but just so you have a little context in case you don't know, over the weekend, Steam, Sony, and Amazon started unilaterally refunding people's money on No Man's Sky if you actually contacted their support, and basically your reasoning was either the game was broken because multiplayer didn't work, and all of the other issues. Oh, come on.
Multiplayer's not broken. It doesn't fucking exist.
Or that the game was heavily advertised, falsely advertised, because all of the E3 trailers that are still used at advertising and all the screenshots from that time are being used to sell a game, which does not look like that. There is no way to argue that the game looks like that. And so, based on those two principles, all those companies were giving refunds. But Steam got hit with so many refunds, they decided to shut it down, and their de facto response has been, you've played more than 2 hours, you can't get a refund since Monday. So yesterday. And there just hasn't been enough time for the story to develop yet. But by next week, something is guaranteed to have happened.
Yeah, and a matter of fact, the person that posted the thread on No Man's Sky subreddit, the big 5,000 upvote thread that, talking about how to get a refund on Steam.
Yeah, he got permanently banned from the subreddit.
Yeah. It's Spore all over again.
Yeah.
There's people so locked into this game, into almost the cult mentality of it, and having to justify buying this game. Even if they're not really having fun with it, they're convinced that they are. Yeah,
well, I mean, it's people don't want to admit that they made a bad decision. I told you this earlier. After really sitting back and thinking about it, reflectively, I feel like I made a bad purchase decision. And that's something I have to live with. I'd like to get a refund. At least you
didn't pre-order it.
No, I didn't. No, hell no. But, I mean, I'd like to get a refund if I could. But, I made a poor purchasing decision. And if I can't get a refund, then so be it. I'm not going to, go foam at the mouth about it. But, I do think that people should be given refunds for the reasons listed. But, again, we are starting to head down this path, which we will not be able to recover from if we don't stop now.
The one that I just said, cackle.
Yeah. This will be a mainline discussion next week once it's had some more time to develop.
Okay, so we're going to keep that on the topic list, or at least the one entry that we have so far.
Yeah. I'm trying to do a bit of journalism on this. I'm trying to get some information, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes.
So that's what you call bugging Steam support now?
Sort of. I'll tell you about it next week once I actually have more information. But yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah, strap in. We're going to have No Man's Sky talk again.
Yep, but not now.
Yeah, but this time it'll actually be entertaining.
I hope so. I hope it was entertaining the first time. listening to me like go on and on. I hate this game. I love this game. It's like I was pulling the pedals on a daisy. I love it. I don't love it. I love it. I don't love it.
Well, fine then. We'll have some entertainment right now. One headline that I had on the topic list.
All right.
Nintendo, we have to do better when we launch the NX.
No shit.
That's exactly what I said. Oh, okay. Shall we move on to the mountain of tweets that I have?
Yes. Let's move on to the mountain of tweets.
To Tweet Mountain. Well, first of all, we have 2 questions of the week.
Okay.
Because I tweeted one out last week as well.
Okay.
Okay, the first question of the week is, what games would you like to see covered in the VGL Game Club? To which Groove said, Space Engineers. It's Minecraft and No Man's Sky crossover. Yeah, it's Minecraft's building system and No Man's Sky's performance issues.
That is perfect. I was going to say, no, it's not. That's not true at all, but that is excellent. Yeah, Space Engineers still runs like shit on my RX 480. So I don't know if that'll happen unless they actually fix it where that it's not performance-wise broken. In space, it's okay, but planets are such a huge portion of that game now, and you're lucky to get 30 FPS on planets for the most part. You basically have to turn foliage off and the view distance to near minimum to be able to maintain something playable on planets. So, maybe Groove, maybe. I'm not going to completely rule it out, but that's definitely going to be...
It's going to be in the distant future if it happens.
Yeah. So...
But I do thank you for the feedback, and sorry to shoot you down immediately, or at least for the time being.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really depends on what they do performance-wise, if they get some optimization going on.
Yeah.
Or if they're trying to future-proof, like Crysis, and, well, you'll be able to play this game at full specs someday, maybe.
Yeah, eventually.
Yeah, there was a running joke for a decade, but can it play Crysis?
Can it run Crysis?
For a good reason. They future-proof Crysis's high-end specs so much that literally no computer, when it came out, could play it at full details at a playable frame rate.
Yep. Games can now, or games. PCs can now, though.
Yeah. Okay, the second question of the week. I did a more general question this time around, just because there wasn't really anything to bounce off of. Which I'll probably have to do another general question for this week, because I think anything I asked about this one will be related to the moon, and we've already kind of covered that.
Yeah.
What is your favorite gaming genre?
Ooh.
Chemist. Tough call looking at games. Looks like there's a lot of platformers, though. Just need tight physics and a well thought out mechanics.
Yeah.
Examples: Super Meat Boy Brawlhalla, which is more of a fighting game, but it does have platform mechanics. Super Mario Galaxy, Rayman Legend, Fez, Mark of the Ninja, Prince of Persia, 08, and Rockard. Or Rochard, depending on which pronunciation you want to use. Probably both of them wrong, knowing me.
Okay.
But a lot of those aren't pure platformers. They're platform hybrids. Mark of the Ninja is a stealth platformer. Prince of Persia is more of an adventure game, but it has platforming elements. Brawlhalla is Super Smash Brothers with platformers.
Yeah.
So, and let's see, Kyle also chimed in with a strategy. With Civilization, Age of Empires, DEF CON, and Command and Conquer. I believe that's what CNC means. Yep. Well, that's the thing with acronyms or initialisms. Before Kyle gets on to me for using the wrong word. Is that, it's a little hard to tell at times.
I'm like 99.9% positive that CNC is Command and Conquer.
Well, I'm pretty sure it is as well. I was just saying that, sometimes people will say, oh, well, I really like this game, and, puts out random initials that looks like they just bashed their head on the keyboard. Right. I love games where planning and resourcefulness trump Twitch memory. And yes, he does list Drumpf. Which is actually, I think he's making a reference to This Week Tonight with John Oliver.
No idea.
At one point, they go on this whole thing about Trump, and the whole punchline of the entire thing was that he talked about how you should be proud of yourself. That why change your name? And his ancestral name is Trump. So there was a hashtag for a while. Make Trump again.
I remember the hashtag. I just didn't realize that's what it was referencing.
Yeah, and he's using that exact spelling. So that's too much of a typo to be anything else. Either that or autocorrect.
Did anyone else respond?
Nope. Okay, that was it.
Real quick, do you have a favorite game genre?
I would say more of the management style or city builder, depending on what subgenre you want to talk about. Right. Things like RimWorld really scratches a good itch for me. Dwarf Fortress, Sim City, City Skylines, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Granted, I'm not great at them, but I enjoy them.
Yeah. My favorite genre has got to be RPG, just because RPGs typically have the best stories. I mean, not always, obviously, but that's what those games are mostly about.
RPG really depends on the game for me. Sometimes it really depends on mechanics more than anything else for story or over story.
Yeah, well, okay, let me specify a little bit. Western RPGs. I do enjoy JRPGs, but I prefer.
What about CRPG?
Maybe.
For those who don't know, that's computer RPG. That's typically the more in-depth. I think the latest one probably would be Divinity: Original Sin or
Wasteland 2.
Pillars of Eternity is probably another good example.
Yeah. I do like those games. I used to, I would have said, yeah, absolutely throw this on the pile. But those games usually take so much time to play through in comparison to other RPGs, which still are typically bigger time sinks. But, you could spend hundreds of hours and not finish. What was the first one you listed when you said CRPG? Pillars of Eternity?
Divinity: Original Sin.
Yeah. You can play, that game for hundreds of hours and not beat it. And, really be kind of trying to focus. Whereas a game like, Skyrim or Oblivion, even though those games are really expansive, you can get through the main gist of the story in 30 or 40 hours the way that I play it. So
in 30 or 40 hours, I may have gotten my mod set up.
Yeah. So Western
until something updates and breaks everything.
Western RPGs. I really like storytelling, so definitely RPG for me. All right, carry on.
All right, tweets. Kyle, who's your daddy?
Wink.
And then he has the. There's going to be a lot of comics from Kyle. Kyle, which is Shrink versus Shrink comic, which you may remember your comic version versus your RimWorld comic version, which he hasn't done a RimWorld comic in a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's been busy hiking.
Yeah, true.
Spending time with his girlfriend.
Yeah, we're going to have to get jealous, I think.
I'm already jealous. I want more drawings of the lesbian version of myself.
I wouldn't be surprised if he hasn't made one once he catches up with RimWorld of you flipping out because you still don't have your own room. If I recall correctly, you're sharing with Groove, I think.
Oh, saucy.
I'm pretty sure it is. That and I had to focus on getting Aki his own room and making him happy because he's been an insufferable little ass. Sorry, Aki, but your character is kind of a pain in my ass.
Yeah, baby.
And then Groove decides to just make fun of Aki's character.
It hurts so good.
Aki, skip ahead about 30 seconds if you don't want spoilers, because I gotta share this. Groove made 2 statues of Aki's character crying and while he's slipping out and trying to disrobe.
Oh, trying to get laid. Wink.
No, it's not even getting laid. He's had a mental break and would just wander around in a daze and start disrobing and wandering around butt naked.
That sounds amazing.
And to try to make Aki happy, since one of them was a good quality statue, I put one of them in his room.
Oh, that's great.
That's why I love RimWorld, and a part of the reason why I love Dwarf Fortress is those little touches. And that's why that's on the Game Club list at some point.
Nice.
Okay. Kyle, if spooning Jared is wrong, I don't want to be right. Hashtag survival spooning.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at one point, Kyle and you were getting a little close.
That sounds like a good thing to me.
That's incest.
I don't judge. The heart wants what the heart wants, man.
Yeah, but he's a dude. Remember, you're gay.
I mean, you could have exploratory phases. I know I did.
Oh, my. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I almost captured a tribal member who was gay. You could have talked about gay things together.
We could have talked about gay stuff.
Unfortunately, he died.
Sad day.
Or I released him. One of the two.
There's a pretty big difference in those two things.
Well, I either let him die, bleed to death because, he attacked me and I didn't have enough room in my medical bay / prisoner holding cell. Or brought him in, patched him up, and released him to get that tribe to start attacking me. One of the two, and I can't recall which.
Big difference between those two things, but all right.
Not in RimWorld.
Okay, back to tweets. We're hopelessly off topic again. I got to steer this. I got to re-rail this train instead of derailing it.
Well, that's hardly fun. Kyle, for the record, my last name is pronounced Bartowski. No worries, though. Almost every teacher I had growing up slaughtered it. Which, chemists, I always find it weird how Americans mispronounce their Polish inherited names. I'd pronounce it Bartowski. Or Bartowski. There's a S-K-E-K instead of Z-I-K. So more of a lisp, I guess. Is this a podcast thread? I can't wait to see how Caffeine Rages struggle. Especially after calling Vorswov workload. Which, that's more my accent than anything else.
Sure it is. Okay.
Well, I don't think I called it workload. It's just my accent got in the way and made it sound like that. I could probably wrong there, though. And then it just dissolves into a very long list of hard-to-pronounce words that they are trying to get me to say, and I say, fuck it.
Oh.
Well, one of them were, I think chemists were saying, well, there's two options. Either I could get bribe you to edit in me saying them properly. I could practice for hours. But I'm taking the third option. Fuck it.
That's pretty much how I feel about it, the topic.
And I'm pretty sure some of those words don't exist. Or if they do, then, Google is needs to work on their word count. Okay, chemists. Finally banned from R. the Donald for trolling after linking to their own top post under CNN as racist story. Feels great.
Oh.
And then let's see. Grieve pointed out that my post last week of me commenting that, I just copied and pasted most of the show notes. I got my order on the key on the hotkeys wrong.
Yeah.
Which honestly, I caught it. I just didn't care to fix it because I was being lazy.
There you go. What was?
And it took someone 7 hours to catch that tweet, by the way.
Oh, I saw it. I just didn't care.
Let's see. Haha, great. Thank you, I guess. Although it took me about 7 hours. But hey, laziness is better than hard work. Kyle, every job is an easy job if you half-ass it. Groove, is that the credo of Jared? Corpse Creed. Semper Pigus. It means always lazy. And I think I have that pronunciation at least somewhat close. I did work on that one.
I don't know how to say it, so I'll believe you.
Well, there was about 3 different versions of it. One in Dutch, one in Latin, and one in French. Then let's see, there was a comic about me being sometimes angry, but honestly I took it as my character being depressed with the rain cloud. And it kind of devolved into him maybe doing my character to be more emotive with glowy eyes and a hat like the Black Waltz from Final Fantasy IX.
Right.
Or did you see that?
No, yeah. No, I saw that. I think I missed the following tweets, but I saw the picture.
Yeah, he's working on a redo of it. I'm not sure if he wanted to do that or is just messing around with it. I mean, it's completely up to him. I'm perfectly fine with the Magica robe. I just kind of commented that it would be easier to tell if I'm angry with the glowy eyes.
Yeah.
Granted, with the glowy eyes, I think I would always look angry. Let's see. Jared is a special little snowflake.
Yeah, I am.
And Chemist asked, does it have something to do with those counseling notes that we talked about a couple months back?
No idea, honestly. I have no clue.
Oh, you commented, this was pretty recently, how your supervisor thinks you're a special little snowflake?
Yeah, that was either today or yesterday.
Well, I don't write down the date, so.
Yeah, but, I mean, yeah, just my supervisor came up to me. We were talking, and he said, you're the most special kind of snowflake in the weirdest way. I just said, thanks. I try.
Okay, he did find the podcast then.
I guess. I don't know. Who knows? I say so many weird things. It might have just been something I said that was weird.
And finally, Groove. No, really, no. Although I don't know if that should be concerning. And if you want to get in on all this madness, you could, the tweets is at that's my personal, is at VGL Podcast. And you can also email us at vglpodcast@gmail.com.
Hooray!
Sorry, the community corner went on for a while. So long that I started to get into the outro.
Right. Well, let's swiftly move on to our Steam Weekly Deals of the Week. We each only picked one. Despite there being like 350 titles on sale or something like that. Well,
there was like 20 of them that was the same language learning game and its DLCs. Or did you see that?
I didn't notice that. I just kind of scanned through and looked for titles that caught my eye.
There was one point where the entire page was the same game, but it was just different languages. And it was one of those things that you buy the language that you want to learn, and then you can buy the DLC for the others.
Right.
It's just clogging up the Steam page.
Right.
Because all the DLCs were also individually listed. So there was something like 20 different entries for the same damn game with its, if you include the DLCs. Granted, if you did that for Train Simulator, it would be like 1,000.
Yeah. 1,000 million. But, so yeah, let's talk about our games of the week. We only had one. What was yours?
Mine was Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition.
Guacamelee.
Yeah. What?
I just
2D.
I've played it. It was one of the free games on.
Well,
Xbox
I played the Gold Edition. I didn't play the Super Turbo Championship Edition, which adds local co-op and a couple more levels. But it's a pretty good Metroidvania style action platformer. It's inspired by Mexican folklore, I believe.
Yeah.
Which is a very unique setting for this game.
Yeah.
Which I think is part of the reason why I liked it so much. Granted, I didn't beat it. I got to one section that I was having trouble with and set it down and never picked it back up again. It's one of those games.
Yeah. I played it when I played it for maybe an hour. And I was like, okay.
I think I
can't do this anymore.
Like 4 hours or so into it. I got a good chunk of it into it. But it has a really colorful and bright art style. and it's has some pretty tight controls. Some of the moves can be a bit annoying to try to pull off, but if you macro them, it's probably not that bad.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot to say about this, just because it's an older game that's been re-released twice with different additions to it. The Gold edition added a little bit to the game, and then the Super Turbo Championship edition added multiplayer.
I think the Gold edition is the one that was free on Xbox Live for a while, or on Xbox for a while.
Yeah, and also the Gold edition is the only one that has Mac and Linux support right now. The Championship edition doesn't. It's Windows only, so if you're a Linux or a Mac gamer, then your decision's kind of made for you. Both of them are the same price, though, and you could get both of them and the soundtrack cheaper than getting the soundtrack in one game. But I'm not sure why you want both versions, because the Turbo version's just a little bit more content.
Yeah.
But it's more, just a pack-in, I guess, with getting the soundtrack at the same time. But it's a game I would recommend checking out if you're looking for a Metroidvania style game, especially one with a more unique setting, because a lot of Metroidvania style games are either your horror or your fantasy style, and there's very few Mexican folklore.
Yeah.
So I think just the setting alone is worth at least looking at it. It is normally $14.99. It is currently 80% off, bringing it down to $2.99, or the complete pack, which includes the Gold Edition, the Turbo Edition, and the soundtrack, is normally $19.99. It's 80% off, which brings it down to $3.99.
Excellent. Well, my game that I chose was a game that I have recommended before, but when I recommended it last time, it didn't come with all of this stuff. So it's the Starpoint Gemini 2 Gold Pack, which includes the main game and all 3 DLCs. Now, one of the DLCs, Starpoint Gemini 2 Origins, is free. So if you just purchase the regular game, you could get that one. But for the game, this pack is normally $12. Or sorry, $41. The line is slashing through, making it look weird. It's normally $41. At 80% off, it's $8.40. And with that, you get an extremely long, well-built and put-together space kind of arcade flight game, very much in the vein of Freelancer in the way that the game works and what you can do in the game. You get the Starpoint Gemini 2 Origins, which is kind of a prequel story, so it adds a whole bunch of new missions. You get the Starpoint Gemini 2 Secrets of Aethera DLC, which was an entire new, roughly 20-ish hour-long quest line in the game. So again, more stuff. It also included new ships. And then you also get the Starpoint Gemini 2 Titans expansion, which was the last one that released at the tail end of last year. And that includes, again, a whole bunch of new story content, and it adds some of the base game mechanics to their next game, which is Warlords, being that you can construct a special ship type called a Titan, which acts like a fleet carrier and is ridiculously huge and powerful. So if you like Freelancer, and if you like space simming it up a little bit, Starpoint Gemini 2 is the game for you. You can have a little squad of ships that follows you around. One of the DLCs, I think it's Titans, gives you more than 2 ships that can follow you around and be commanded by you. And it's got completely seamless open world. Once the game loads, you can fly across the whole map without a single loading screen. Tons of ship variety, huge modding community for this game. You can get all of your standard sci-fi ships out of this game, from Star Destroyers to X-Wings to replace the fighters, TIE fighters. You can get stuff from Star Trek as well, the Enterprise, a whole host of Star Trek ships. You can get stuff from Mass Effect, like the Normandy. There's stuff from Babylon 5. There's stuff from... suddenly I'm drawing a blank. I'm doing that thing I do where I draw blanks on stuff.
And then you just leave this in so you don't bother editing it out.
Yeah, whatever. There's a lot of sci-fi series that have been modded into the game. So if you're interested in that, go check it out.
Stargate?
There is Stargate. The pyramid ships are in the game.
All
Someone
right.
modded those in. So, yep. For $8.40, you can get dozens, if not 100+ hours of really awesome, solid sci-fi gameplay. So that's my game recommendation for the week.
All right, how about Andromeda? Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda.
I have no idea.
Now I'm trying to get obscure sci-fi that I could at least think of.
I mean, I suppose I could head over to the workshop and start looking, but we're running along as it is, so...
But people complain when we don't meet the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, I suppose, but I would like to go to bed eventually. I'm still kind of sick, and I do have to get up in the morning.
Be a party pooper.
I will be a party pooper, damn it. Okay, so it's time to go on to the last section of our show where we plug our things and plug other things and plug all the things. And this is the one section of the show where I go first. So on the interwebs, you can find me on YouTube by searching for Gaming Psychologist. My subscriber count has been very slowly inching its way up again since I put up a couple of review videos. I think most of it comes from the No Man's...
Yeah, that tends to what happen when you put out content.
You meanie head. I think most of it comes from the No Man's Sky review. That video, last time I checked, was at roughly 40 views, and I haven't checked on it in a few days, so it might be more than that, but I'm not going to go look right now. So I'm up to over 70 subscribers, and I've been hovering in the mid-60s for a while. So thanks to everyone who subscribed to me if you listen to the podcast. Coming up on the channel, I'm pretty much caught up on Terraria, except for the stuff that we recorded Saturday. Everything is edited and in the hopper. And I'm in the 40s now, so...
All right, that means I could add that one that corrupted on me then to my playlist.
Yep. So, I'm in the 40s episodes on that. There's some War Thunder stuff coming up. We played some Rocket League last week. That's going to be on the channel soon.
Actually did well in Rocket League.
Yeah, we did really well. I also am having more regular review stuff go up. I've got review content scheduled in for the next 7 weeks. So that's every Sunday at noon. I will be reviewing a game, either a game from my archives of games that I used to review all the time, or something new that I have created. I have done my best to alternate, but I did use several archives in a row to give me a jump start on playing and writing reviews for games, because I have less time for that than I used to. So it takes me a little bit longer to get one out. But I'm hoping to alternate.
So you should just do first impressions, because then you could do them in the afternoon.
I could do that, and I may do some of that as well. But I'm trying to focus on games that I have played a bit, at least right now, have played a bit in the past, but never did a review for, so that I have kind of a jump start on it. But yeah, the average episode length, I'm hoping to hit around 10 minutes per review. You know, a little bit less. The archive stuff is just whatever it is. Most of those tend to average like 4 or 5 minutes, but I'm hoping to hit around 10 minutes per episode. I think that's a good review length. But yeah, that's all the stuff that's coming up on my channel for the next week, and then obviously with the reviews a little bit farther into the future. As for other things, you can follow me on Twitter at JMA4707, where I tweet about all kinds of stuff. Today I've just pretty much been tweeting nonstop about To the Moon and talking about crying. So, hooray for manly tears. If you want to watch me stream video games, I do so on Twitch over at twitch.tv/jarthur4707. Playing a lot of playing a lot of War Thunder. Probably we'll play some more Rocket League since we did well. That encourages us to play more. And who knows what other games that we're going to wind up playing. Also, if you want to be my friend on Steam, you can send me a friend request. My Steam username is jarthur4707. I will blindly accept your request and talk to you if you want to talk to me.
And the password for this week, if you wish to let them know exactly where you're coming from, is Field Trip. Field Trip.
Oh. I got a password this past week. I got the Aardvark password from several weeks ago.
Yeah, that would be episode 26, the third one that I did.
So, there you go. Some people use the passwords.
It's always fun to hear you say that you got a random word.
Yeah, someone just sent me a message, and I can't remember right off the top of my head who it was. I do apologize for forgetting who it was that sent me the password. But just randomly, I'm sitting there doing some stuff, and it pops up. I get a Steam chat message, Aardvark. I just laugh to myself. But, so that wraps up for me. Well, what about you, sir?
Well, on my YouTube channel, Game with Caffeine Rage, it's kind of just business as usual, where all my series are running normally, and for RimWorld, it's going to be an ongoing thing. But Victor Veron is about the midpoint or getting close to the end or the ending act, at the point where there's some blatant filler. So it's just waiting for that to go by to probably go into the final act of that game. And of course, Terraria, which I did have to skip an episode a while back, which I'll be adding this week to my playlist. I'll probably do that tonight to make it complete again.
What episode were you missing?
I was missing 39.
Okay, so yeah, I've 41, I'm pretty sure, is published.
Yeah, I'm looking at my list. 38, then it goes immediately to 40. So 39 was the one that corrupted on me. But RimWorld has been doing amazingly well. Mostly people are coming in and seeing what their characters are doing or what they get, because I will say that I only have control over the starting 3, what they get. And even then, it's more approve or reject. I'm not building these characters from scratch. And the name list is randomized, which I haven't had anyone asked to get added to the name list just yet. And if someone does ask to get added, I will add you, then randomize my list of the names I have unused so far. But it's been interesting to hear what people think of their characters. And also the game has been picking on Aki nonstop. Because the trait system, the trait spread that he got is not exactly great. He got slothful, which means that he doesn't work nearly as fast, and he works or moves slowly. He got ugly, so he gets picked on a bit. And then he got too smart, which makes it so that his mental break threshold is higher, but he learns faster.
Right.
So he's very prone to just snapping and just wandering around in a daze for a while, and then crying and stripping down, and then Groove makes art about it. Which that actually happens in episode 8, along with some other stuff. I have 8 episodes all set up and ready to go. Well, at least, they need to be tagged and scheduled, but I have up till next week to all set and ready to go for RimWorld before I record again. I'll probably record some more, just trying to get a bit further ahead, because during my last recording session, the new alpha for RimWorld came out, which the way RimWorld works is that a new alpha would require a new save file. So thankfully, I took basically a page out of my Kerbal Space Program and copied RimWorld and had it pasted into another directory. So I had Alpha 14 backed up. So I'm just playing that backup copy pretty much for the entire series, along with all the mods are saved to that backup copy, so my mods aren't changed. Even though I did accidentally turn on a couple that I was toying around with. But thankfully they didn't break anything, so I need to update the mod list eventually to see what I added inadvertently, but it wasn't anything major. But so far it's just trying to survive with RimWorld. You know, that's been like the main focus of my channel lately, because it's the one series that's getting a lot of attention. Terraria sometimes get views, but RimWorld has been a lot of traffic. And as always, I do have the podcast on Fridays, which Jared kind of neglected to mention.
Yeah.
And the Sunday Sampler, which has some interesting games, as you heard me talk about earlier. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, and sometimes I get pissed off for one particular game mechanic.
Sometimes you put your angry pants on.
Admit it. You like it whenever I start picking on a game.
Oh, I love your angry pants.
Wink.
Wink.
Yeah, something like Escape Close Call. Oh,
Love those angry pants.
That wasn't a good game. And I think I have an idea of what I'm going to be playing this week, but we'll see what I get review copy-wise, and before, let's say, Friday. Because the week is still very young. If you want to catch all that, once again, it is over at Gaming with Caffeine Rage, or you could catch me on Twitter, Gaming with CR, where it's mostly links to my stuff, but I do occasionally post other things or just make random comments. Like I talked about how gaming PCs used to involve CD-ROMs.
Back in the dark ages.
But yeah, all that's on Gaming with CR. I don't have a Twitch, so that wraps me up for my shameless plugging.
All right. Well, how about you plug the other stuff?
Well, first of all, we want to thank Internet Archive for unknowingly supporting the podcast. And since we've done our last recorded podcast, I also put an archive of all of an RSS dump of all of Kerbalcast on Internet Archive as well. I tweeted that out, and Biff retweeted it, so it should be pretty recent on Kerbalcast's Twitter right now. And this is the last day that the RSS feed for Kerbalcast is active.
Right. Speaking of that, I apologize for interrupting, but that reminds me, I have been going through and creating YouTube videos to place them online, and they're going to be placed in a playlist somewhere, ad-free, so that you don't have to worry about nasty ads coming over your Kerbalcast. And I will also be posting the entire archive once I get that finished. I've been doing a few videos a day.
I just did an RSS feed dump, which, because of how the naming scheme for Kerbalcast kind of went in flux. Yeah. It messed up the order, but they're all there at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not everybody uses RSS feeds and stuff like that. That's why I want to put them on YouTube. I mean, it's just a single static image, as small a file size as I can make it. And I did fix the naming scheme, so they will all appear in the proper order.
All right. See, I started to, and then I realized that it was going to be a huge pain in the ass to figure out some of the specials.
Yeah.
So I decided, fuck it.
Yep. Nope. I fixed all that. So I'm hoping to get those done this week. Like I said, I've been doing a few a day. They don't take very long to render, but it's just like I got to remember to do it.
There's 79 of them, I think.
Yeah. There's 70-something episodes, or maybe 80-something episodes.
It was either 79 or 89.
I think it's in the 80s, because I got to the 70s before they swapped over to the 2-point whatever number system. So.
Yeah, which didn't last long.
Nope.
Ugh.
But enough of that sadness.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Well, if you want to contribute to this sadness, you could reach us once again at vglpodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at vglpodcast with your letters, voicemails, your gaming-related topics, or even if you wish to submit something to the game club to add it to the poll.
Yep.
Which will be open next week until our next game club discussion, which will be, once again, Papers, Please. We have our Patreon campaign, of course, as we're trying to relieve the stress of the Internet Archive, but it is expensive to get off the Internet Archive for a show that goes on for, well, according to my clock, nearly 3 hours before editing. You could do that over at patreon.com/VGLpodcast, and we are very appreciative of any donations that you make, but you do not have to do that if you don't feel like, well, supporting the podcast, of course. And we will never put any of our content behind a paywall.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, because that has always felt like a dick move. Right?
Super dick move.
And well, Jared has a plug here.
Yes, Left Stick Down Gaming, the site that I used to write reviews for, is trying to come back with a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel. The links to those will be in the description because I was too lazy to go get them. But they did put us as one of their content people that they support on their Twitch and YouTube channels. So just as a shout out to them, we will link them in the description this week. They also have inquired about doing collab stuff with Us Rage, which we can discuss later. But yeah, I completely forgot about that until just now. They asked about doing some collab stuff with us. And I said channel growth is always wonderful, so I'd say we're probably not opposed.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to check the badger trap, of course, before we do that. Yep, still empty.
Yeah?
Yes, Amy, I am picky on you a little bit.
Or a lot.
Mostly because you did emails.
Yeah.
But if you wish to email us, you already have that email address, so let's move on to the website. And yes, I did intentionally do that. The website, of course, is videogamelogicpodcast.blogspot.com because I didn't set that up. And you can also find us on iTunes, Google Play, and whatever random podcast site Jared finds this week.
Indeed.
What, you don't have any random ones you found recently?
I don't have any new ones that I found this week. Like I said, it was a crazy week last week, and I was sick over the weekend, so...
Yeah, but you did have to edit the podcast, so that gives you a few hours to look around.
That's true, but I'd rather spend that time playing video games than being lazy.
Yeah, well, fair enough. Our intro music is intro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod, and you can find his work at incompetech.com. And
as his wonderful music starts to roll across my voice, boo-bye now.
See you next time.
Boo-bye.